This is Smalland. It's got a lot of similarities to Grounded, but it is very much a different game. It does not get the same recognition though, but it certainly deserves it. This game released February 2024, and they are still cranking out major free updates to continue expanding the game. They added new areas to explore, new creatures to tame and ride, new enemies, the all-important constant bug fixes, and recently, their biggest update yet, the Underlands, adding a whole new section of the map. It's insane what this team continues to do. Very quietly, we live in a time when most games are pumping out lesser quality content for more money. Looking at you, Nintendo. But here we have a dev giving us more and more, continuing to support their game, at no extra cost to us. I've already spent over 100 hours in this amazing game, and I fully intend to keep going. But until then, I wanted to share my experience so far in this SUPERCUT version of my previous playthroughs. Part 1 is early on in the game's release, and it takes you through the main story. And Part 2 is after a big content update, and I 100% the game, because it was that good. So, if you hadn't had a chance to experience this game, I invite you to come along on this epic journey with me. And if you've already been here, I appreciate you coming back. And make sure to look out for more Smalland adventures in the future. For now, let's jump into this.
Today I find myself as a small folk, a tiny person living in the land of giants, aka humans. My queen has fallen ill, and I have 100 days to explore these lands in search of the elixir of life. But it won't be easy. This world is filled with dangerous creatures. At every turn something is trying to kill you or eat you. No. And some of them, they are actually the stuff of nightmares. Good God, that is gross. I'll have to tame the strongest of creatures. Let's go! Build the stronghold safely off the ground, and search for and craft the ultimate set of weapons and armor. Only then will I be able to survive long enough to save my queen. This is Smalland, and it is amazing! Buckle up, friends. We're going for a ride. Let's go. I am Vanguard, intrepid pioneers of the small folk. I was sent forth to explore this treacherous land, but my party was attacked by a giant hornet, and so I arose from the attack. My commanding officer, Hildred, was badly injured. He said I would need to make my way back to home base to let them know what happened and to send for help. So I set off. As a small folk, I have a unique antenna ability to sense my surroundings. I used it to discover and gather a few basic resources. It was a long trek. I was going to need some weapons in this dangerous world, so I crafted some basic tools. And just in time too, because I was already in need to defend myself from this vicious ant. I put my Vanguard skills to the test to take down this surprisingly difficult ant warrior, and I collected some useful resources from his corpse. I continued on, facing off against more ants and grabbing everything I could along the way. I found some owl effigies that helped me learn about the world, like this helpful tip about weapon types and enemy weaknesses. I got some food and ran for my life from some bees. I definitely wasn't ready to fight any of those guys. I made it to Hearn to inform him of our attack. He let me know these attacks have been happening several times over the past few days, and it'd be wise to take shelter in a treetop. He had me report to Elder Ludwig and then gave me some better options for armor. I crafted what I could and then went off to find the Elder. I found him down in his cozy little hobbit hole. He told me a clover key was missing that unlocks the apothecary's chest, which is what contains the elixir of life. It is said to be able to cure any ailment, and the only hope for our ill-fallen queen to save her life. So it was my job as Vanguard to search the lands, find the key, retrieve the elixir, and save our queen. When I informed him of the hornet attack, he said that many of the small folk have been complaining of highly aggressive creatures. He tasked me with speaking to the locals and seeing if I could uncover more information. He gave me their locations and then directed me towards Caleb, who can help me with better armor. But on the way there, I discovered one of these great tree encampments Hearn was referring to. The gnome effigy at the base of the tree informed me I needed to climb to the top. These mushrooms looked pretty sturdy, so I started climbing, and they indeed led me up top, where I found the tree butler and the airlift, and once I did, I was able to claim this tree as my own. So now when I build a base up here, I can simply relocate it to another one of these trees elsewhere in the world. A really nice feature. But I was just getting my bearings. A base wasn't quite my next step. Exploration was. I took the airlift down and headed out to explore, right away running into more ants. I was beginning to hate these things already. They were not easy to fight with my wooden weapons. I ran around and spotted some more friendly looking creatures before feeling hungry. I had to put down a campfire to see what food I had available to cook, and fried up some ant body parts to make ant skewers. Yum! I put down a bed too, but of course needed it to be sheltered. So I was kind of forced into making a small little base, but I held off on building up in the tree for now. I figured it'd be easier to have a place on the ground to store resources instead of having to go up and down the balloon airlift, so I got to building down here. As night fell, I got a tiny shelter put up that wasn't finished, but at least gave me the sheltering I needed to sleep on my bed. With daylight, I set out to find some more resources to finish my temporary hut. Near Hearn was this really cool underground area. I love the way this game looks and feels. The art design is so fantastic. But there was also a ton of the basic resources I needed down here. I got the goods, then went back to finish my base. I got a workbench down so I could get better tools and weapons, and some healing wraps. Right outside my front door was a friendly grasshopper, but I assumed he had some resources, so I attacked him. He got some good hits in, but I outmaneuvered him and dropped his health. I noticed the blurred out tame option, which got me really excited. I was looking forward to taming in this, so I was wanting to look into how to do that very early on. Nighttime came again and the creatures seemed to be more dangerous. The friendly ladybugs were now nocturnal ladybugs and attacking me, and they actually hurt. Same with the nocturnal grasshopper, who was way stronger. I realized nighttime is not safe at all for me, so I headed back home, trying to hide from this nocturnal grasshopper who followed me and stalked me even inside my house. I realized he was not gonna go away, so I had to fight him. He was tough, but with some patience, I was able to defeat him. Since so many of these resources require specific tools to harvest, I needed to do some hunting. The pickaxe required some ant parts I did not have, so I went in search of more and different types of ants. I found a bull ant. It was much larger and stronger. I figured he must have what I need, so I took him on. These ants continue to prove they are not easy to fight, but I was able to defeat him, and he indeed had what I was looking for. When I got mandibles, I headed back to craft the mandibular pickaxe, and then right by where I found the ants, there was some stone that I could harvest. Out exploring, I ran into a new enemy type that was much stronger than me, the Sawyer beetle.
All right, let's go, big boy.
Dude, another freaking ant? Come on, man, leave me alone.
Ooh, that was close.
Ah, take that. Nighttime continued to surprise me with new creatures. Dawn ants, which were even more annoying than the regular ones, and fireflies. I still feel quite unsafe in the nighttime, so I ended up making my way back home. I continued gathering all the resources and slowly made my way toward Caleb to see what armor he had to craft. He gave me access to a stone tier of armor, which had noticeable better protection than what I was using. And with my newly crafted pickaxe, I could mine the stone that I needed. But I also had a stone cutter crafting station, which opened up better weapons. This felt like a pretty big priority considering even the weakest ants are shredding me right now. So, more farming. I found some interesting resources, bottle caps and a screw. I'll have to wait and see what I can use these for. But once home, I put up my stone cutter. I wanted to focus on the weapons. I set my destination to the other small folk marked on my map, and I headed out. Except I realized I may have made a mistake, because where I was going was bee territory. And bees, well, they hurt. They hurt bad. I sprinted toward my destination, hoping these bees couldn't get me inside this structure, and when I got inside, it was the person I was looking for. Her name, Drustana. She didn't call off her bees, but at least I was safe inside. And she had this dope armor for me to craft. It was significantly stronger and so cool looking, but a ton of resources I didn't have any idea how to get. However, I really wanted it. Also, these gliding wings. I knew I had a new, huge priority. I wanted this stuff so badly. Since she didn't have any more info on the hornet attacks, I headed back. I had some newer resources now, including honey, which gave me access to a stronger healing patch. But also, I was able to craft some better weapons, like the hammer and a stone spear. I was all about that bee armor, but some of these enemies were getting pretty tough. I figured getting the stone armor would be wise. It's not that expensive, and it has much better protection. I got what I needed for resources and then crafted my stone suit of armor. The protection was notable and well worth it, but my main mission was now getting my hands on that bee armor and glider suit. If I could at least get the wings, I'd be happy with that, but I needed insect wings and 10 of them. So with my stone suit of armor, which had pierce damage protection, I headed back to bee land. I got hit with a storm while I was out there and no shelter. The storms drain your health and your stamina, But luckily there were no baddies nearby, so I was able to just stand there freezing and wait for it to pass. And then I fought the bees. Lots and lots and lots of bees. But none of them were dropping the insect wings that I needed. I took down probably 20 to 30 bees and I only got one insect wing. But it was already on the ground, so I don't even think that it came from one of the bees. I knew I'd have to find a better way to get these. It didn't take long for my temporary base to become very overcrowded. Instead of just expanding this base, it was time to just build in the Great Tree. So I got to work doing that. I was unsure of what I wanted to build, so I just stuck with a basic layout large enough to fit all my workstations. As it always does, it took longer than expected, getting everything moved over and organized, but such is part of the process. I ventured back out to see what else I could discover, mostly looking for things that fly so that I could get those insect wings. I ran into a damselfly. Surely this thing must drop wings. It was hard to hit, but when I took them down, there were the wings. Now, just to find 8 more. It was just this one in the area, so I knew I was going to have to keep searching other places. I unlocked and crafted a cauldron, which opened up better foods, but also a grasshopper treat. I was already hyper-focused on getting the bee armor, but my priorities just shifted. Getting a tame was the actual #1 thing that I wanted to do in this game, so I had to do it, especially because I already had the resources, and earlier I found an owl effigy that told me how to tame them, a super easy method, so I figured, why wait? Let's go get a grasshopper. I remember there was the grasshopper spawn right outside my great tree. When I got down, there he was. Just a few pokes with my spear, and the prompt showed up. I fed him his treat, and I had a new pet. And while the grasshopper can't fly, his mobility is insane. His damage, not so much. He could still take on these annoying ants, but this was no combat tame. He was gonna be my traveler. The world instantly became smaller, and I started exploring a few newer areas, which gave newer resources and newer creatures. This gecko I faced off also had a taming prompt, something I'd have to look into for sure because his attacks were much stronger. There was a ton of stuff down on this beach. I couldn't farm the bark pieces, but the flint, I gathered as much as I could. The geckos have hide, which is always a good resource, and I just spent some time gathering everything I could in this newer area. So, just a little side note, I ended up changing a setting so when you die, you keep all your stuff. There's no fast travel in this game, so to save myself literal hours of just going from point A to point B, I changed the settings so now I can just kill off my character and I'll just spawn back at base when I'm ready to go home. Normally when you die, all your stuff just drops in a bag safely, so you're not really dampening your experience, it just makes it way more convenient. Anyway, I fast traveled back home and crafted some new structures I unlocked. Me and Grassman went out to do some farming. I had all these flint items unlocked I could now craft, so I got what I needed to do that. The honey I got from the bees gave me access to the better healing, so I crafted a ton of those. And seeing as how I burned through my honey, I went up to the bee area to get some more. It also had poppy plants, which gave me nectar, petals, and seeds. All things I was in need of, and the only place I knew to get them from. I parked my grasshopper on this picnic table, and I farmed a ton. Also, I got me some garlic. It was a new day, and I had an itch to explore more beyond what I already had. Now that I had my grass man who could leap across half the world from atop my tree, I headed west to the unexplored lands. I continued to test Grassman's strength against enemies. I almost took down this Sawyer beetle, but was blindsided by this water bug, and he killed my Grassman. So now I was stuck out here. But there's no point in going back. I pressed on. And I didn't have to go very far before I made it to hell. At least for some people. I quite like spiders personally, but that doesn't mean these things aren't creepy. For one, the pathing on these is ridiculous. If you think you're safe up in a tree or on a cliff, nope, these things will come get you wherever you are. But also, they're poisonous and difficult. This wolf spider did some damage to me before I was able to take him down. I didn't plan on fighting too many more of these, but I wanted to see what newer resources I could discover out here. So, I headed into the land of the spiders. Not too deep in, I discovered these spider cocoons. I broke them open and got some newer resources that looked pretty useful. Silk. I gathered what I could before being hit with a storm. I ran around expecting to either die or just weather the storm, but I was chased down by a freaking black widow. I found this cave entrance and thought, hey, shelter. But I may have just walked into the black widow's home. As I got deeper and deeper inside, I saw some adorable cute spiders who seemed quite friendly, and also another person. I cautiously approached the spider lady, holding a baby spider, and spoke to her. She had some new armor for me. I was pretty hyped. She wasn't on the map, so this was a great random discovery. But she also had a mission for me. She mentioned an albino spider who is behaving erratically. Of course, this was my mission. As the Vanguard, I was tasked with discovering what is making so many of these world's creatures behaving unusually. So naturally, I agreed to look into it. She had a bunch of the spider silk in her den, so I snagged it before heading out. Right outside, I was attacked by these vicious mosquitoes, and they absolutely destroyed me. So that was the end of my exploration for the day. Back home, I grabbed my extra grasshopper treat, and I went right down to tame another. I'm super happy my tree is right next to one of these spawns, because they are pretty squishy. Now that I had the spider silk, I crafted a lumen spindle, and it gave me some new unlocks. I was particularly interested in the grappling gun, but still needed a few things for it first. Instead, I was so hyped about all the new armor sets I was getting, I kind of made it a goal to talk to all the NPCs to unlock as many armor sets as I could. I set out to Scotty, the only other person shown on my map, and he actually had multiple sets of armor. I was loving this. It made me want to go around and collect them all just because some of them looked really cool. But I still had the priority of getting the bee outfit because that was still my favorite up to this point. Scotty also pointed out a nearby troubled creature, the rhino beetle. It was right down at the beach, not far at all from me, so I figured I'd at least go scout it out. It was big, and the beetles I had been facing off against were really tough. But I felt good about my armor and weapons, so I just went ahead and went to battle.
Oh, this ain't doing much. Heavy attack ain't doing it either. Oh, that hurt. Oh my god. No, 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 no. Oh, no!
Turns out I was actually quite a bit underpowered for that fight, so I decided to hold off until I could at least upgrade my weapons. I went back to the beach though to get resources, flint, bones, and hide from the gecko, chitin from the beetles, and I finally found some flyers with wings and where they spawn. Both damselfly and dragonfly were down here on the beach, and nighttime gave me some nocturnal dragonfly. I took them down with my spear and collected their wings, and with a bit of farming, then I got the 10 wings finally that I needed to craft my own set of glider wings. But I was still short on chitin, and it was still a little hard to farm. Killing these beetles is tough with my weak weapons, so I crafted parts of the bee suit that I could, and I continued farming everything I needed until I had the whole suit crafted. Now my better armor should make getting the last of the chitin for the glider suit much easier. I put my armor to the test, and I faced off against 2 Sawyer beetles. My damage was still low, but the defense was a major increase. I was very happy with my decision to grind this out. I continued farming a few more beetles because I was in need of more chitin to get the final piece of my suit, the wings. And once I had it, damn did it look good. I absolutely love this suit. I hopped off my tree to test out my glider, and with all the confidence of my new gear, I felt ready to take on the rhino beetle again. Here we go. Ah. 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 Can't touch me. Oh! Oh, it's all right, we got this. Yes, let's go. My new armor was truly the difference maker there. It felt good to have protection, but next I needed better weapons. It's still a pain to take down regular beetles, so upgrades are needed. I had some more resources to gather and things to take care of at my base, like better storage and a little rearranging. But once I took care of my chores, I went back to Scotty to inform him I took down the beetle. As a reward, he gave me a gecko treat. Now I could tame a gecko. But I was pretty obsessed with this grasshopper. It's amazing as a travel mount, so I didn't feel the need to rush out and tame a gecko. I was still more focused on finding the other NPCs, seeing what troubles I could help them with, and most importantly, what cool armor they had to unlock. So before I went out to do more exploring, I had some preparations to take care of. I needed more and better food as well as better healing methods. I looked into all that and crafted what I could. There are a ton of food options that offer different benefits. I had some petals, honey, and nectar I needed, so I made a quick trip to Bee-land. A lot easier to survive up here now with my bee armor, and I crafted an apothecary table to be able to make potions. This is where I can get healing potions, stamina potions, and what might be the most helpful, a poison antidote. I continued to upgrade my weapons too, as much as I could at least. A new bow, some fire arrows, and a few other things. I was in need of more advanced workstations for anything else. However, I did finally unlock the grappling hook. It was a little tough to get used to, but the grapple combined with the glider wings is so much fun to use. The only downside is grappling hooks have ammo, so you need to make sure you have a bunch on you when you're swinging around. Since my weapons and armor were upgraded as much as they could be, I figured there's no better time to go after my next challenge, the giant albino spider that Lysandra told me about. I entered its cave and cautiously approached, hoping not to be jump scared. But there it was. Big and gross and creepy as all hell. Now that is truly the stuff of nightmares. I said I didn't mind spiders, but this thing was a monstrosity. I went in for the attack just so I didn't have to look at it anymore. That's not very much damage. Oh, ow, ow, that hurt. Damn, he hits hard. Ouch. Let's heal up. God. That's not it. That's not it. Ah, leave me alone. No, 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 no. Get stabbed on the back. Ah. Woo, let's go. Let's go. No. So close. Come on, we got this. So close. Let's finish him off right here. Let's go. Go. No. Come on. Come on. We're so close. I can't get him. Yes. There we go. I felt good about that fight. It was not easy, but I had enough patience and medical brews to get me through it. For any future spider encounters, I will make sure to bring poison antidotes because poison is really what makes that tough. I attempted to make my way to Lysandra to tell her of my triumph, but at night, in the swamp, there are mosquitoes, and they attacked me instantly when I left the cave. My poor grass boy was shredded in seconds, and a little later, me too. So I couldn't get to her just then. But back home, I had to quickly get a new hopper, then I just cruised my way back out there. She told me about another small folk having trouble. This time, it was a black hornet. And that sounds way worse to me. But this is my duty as vanguard. And she also gave me another treat. This one for a wolf spider. Yup, I can tame a spider now. But I kinda wanted one of these cute jumping spiders low-key. Are you a good boy? I set my course for Nock in the northwest and headed out. I ran into another bee, but it looked a little bigger. This was no regular bee. It was a wasp, and so I ran, only to run right into a hornet, even bigger and scarier. This area was definitely more challenging, so I had to be careful. I found Nock, who was surrounded by human junk. This area had a lot of remnants of the humans, which the small folk call giants. Nock gave me a few more unlocks and told me about the black hornet disturbing the land. I agreed to take care of it, but I figured that was probably going to need some upgrades first. Right here at her base was a scrap metal node, something I hadn't yet discovered. I could only assume this would give me access to some sort of metal weaponry, which is exactly what I'll need if I'm going to take down any hornets. I saw a rich spot with metal nodes and I hopped down, but these gray flies had other ideas. These things messed me up. They are brutal. They hurt, and they swarm you, and they're faster than you. This might be the toughest enemy I have faced off yet. Naturally, they slaughtered me in seconds, and I was forced back home with only a small amount of metal gathered. And since I didn't get that much, I actually headed right back out there. But first, Nock told me about another small folk I could find, Mirmek. He lived in this cool tower underneath a guitar, and he had even cooler armor. I was obsessed with all these armor types. I had trouble deciding which one to use. The Formic looked dope, but had the same resistance as my bee suit. I figured since I didn't really have any of those resources, I'd just stick with my suit for now, but you bet I'll be getting my hands on that one in the future, just to have it in my wardrobe. He's not far from Nock in the metal area, so I went right over there to get more goods afterwards. Another enemy my weapons were just not strong enough for, but I persisted and rapidly healed myself to be able to take him down. And another dangerous enemy right there ready to fight, the cockroach. This dude was super tanky. He also hit hard, but once again, with a little perseverance, I was able to overcome him. These guys dropped heavy chitin, a resource I was looking for, so I'm really glad I was able to take him on. But I got as much metal as I could, and then I headed back to craft some more things. I built a windmill, not really knowing what I needed it for, but I'm glad I did because that actually unlocked the stone oven and furnace, weirdly. And now that I have those, I could smelt my scrap metal and get ingots. And I could only assume that means metal weapons are not that far away. I already had my windmill outside, and with 2 more things to craft, I needed to increase my base size a little bit. I was careful not to get lost in my building. It's something I tend to do in these games, and as much as I love it, my main focus was exploring and completing the story. So I just took enough time to make a little more space so that I could put my new structures inside. Oh, and also, it became winter. So, there's seasons in this world. Now that I had more space, I wanted to place my forge, but I still needed heavy chitin. So, back up north to face off with some cockroaches. But fighting 2 at once is not easy. And the cold weather kept my health dropping constantly. So, it was a wasted trip. Back home, I actually cooked up some soups and chowders that should help me keep warm. Then, right back to conquer them. I definitely needed to take these on 1 versus 1, but even so, they are not easy. I'm gonna need better weapons and maybe better armor if I'm gonna farm these for heavy chitin. And it looks like I will need to. Chitin is used in a lot of the armors and better weapons. So this time I crafted some potions, as if I was going to fight a boss, because that's what these cockroaches felt like at this point. The hornet dropped some too, but not as much as the cockroach. I just needed a bit of stone to make stone bricks to be able to craft my furnace. I got that put up and then set my sights on crafting the forge. This is where I can actually make the metal weapons I've been yearning for, but I needed clay mortar to do so. Another new resource I wasn't sure how to get or craft, so that project was on hold. Instead, I turned my sights towards getting a new tame, the wolf spider. I took my treat and my grasshopper out to the Spiderlands and sought out my target. I dropped his health, fed him his treat, and took him on a joyride. As I expected, their mobility isn't anywhere near as good as the grasshopper, but it had much better damage and a much higher health pool. So I could actually use it to help in battle without getting demolished in 2 hits, like my grasshopper. I rode around leveling him up a bit and did some resource farming while out here. Then I had to figure out how to get him home. You can only have 1 tame in your party at a time, as far as I know, so I had to either leave my grasshopper or spider here. Obviously, I can just get a new grasshopper, so I just had to fast travel to go home. Then I used this pet whistle to call my spider up to my tree. A really nice craftable item that you can use to call your pet from anywhere. Also, helpful if it gets stuck or something. I was determined to get my forge built, so I got a new grasshopper and set out for more exploring. I headed south. There was still a bit of the map to uncover, and I hadn't explored that way fully. So I headed down to see if I could fully open up the map and maybe discover clay. I ran into some new creatures and took them on, hoping for newer resources and things to craft. This lizard gave me some new items, but most importantly, I found the clay. It's really annoying to farm though, because it grows on these concrete walls, and sometimes they are up a little high. I couldn't find a really dense spot with a ton of it, but I grabbed what I could before being destroyed by one of these stag beetles. And with no warming foods, I couldn't fully recover from it, so I froze to death before really getting to find a clay-rich spot. But I did come away with some, and I figured out you make the clay mortar with clay in the windmill. So I was going to need to make my way back to get more, but at least I knew what I needed to do to get my forge and ultimately my metal weapons. I began the day with some resource farming. This time I was after chitin. I needed a bunch to craft the ammo for the grappling hook, but then I made my way back south, this time with some warming food to keep me from freezing to death, and I found a bunch of clay. I still wasn't able to find a really solid spot where a bunch existed. I had to keep running around getting small amounts. It was pretty grindy, but I was able to get all that I needed. So back home I rearranged quickly to make room for my new forge and got it built, and also an upgraded cooking station, the stone oven. But the forge unlocked the weapons that I really needed. Ultimately, I decided on the iron hammer. The cockroaches have a blunt damage weakness, and they were kind of my hardest enemies at this point, so it felt right to get the weapon that could crush them. And then I just had to test it out. So back up north, I first took on a hornet, which went down much quicker than the cockroaches. But 2 of them is still a challenge. However, the power increase was massive, and now it actually felt like I wasn't fighting a boss every time I went up against these. I still had to be strategic though and use my healing, but I took them down without dying. A big W. I farmed up what metal I could and stole this toy soldier from Knock before heading home. Kind of a fun little craftable thing that I decided to just toss out at my base. The heavy chitin was important because I was looking to craft this bone set of armor. It had more protection than what I was currently using, and piercing resistance to it. My goal was to craft this up before I went after the Black Hornet. I didn't know its specific attack, but I could only assume a Hornet has pierce damage, and you need a lot of heavy chitin for it. So that hammer was essential. I was able to get the greaves crafted. That's all I had the resources for, so I'll have to do some more farming. I had more metal weapons to craft too, so I continually went back to the same area to keep farming a ton of metal. It was a lot of work and I had to kill off a lot of cockroaches, but after a couple days, I had my bone armor crafted. I was close to being ready to take on the Black Hornet. I just had a few potions and healing wraps to craft. I got some honey and berries and things I needed to make those. Crafted them all up back at base and then loaded up my inventory with everything I needed. I had 2 metal weapons, the hammer and the scythe. I wasn't sure which damage type would be best, but both are great weapons. I took my grasshopper up top, knowing he'd be destroyed, but I thought it might provide a temporary distraction so I could get some free shots in. Immediately, the hornet started flapping its wings, making the sound of thunder. It did a charge attack as I narrowly escaped. I could barely outrun this thing with my grasshopper, so it was time to attack. Missed me. Whoa, this scythe hit! Ow! Okay, a little too cocky here. Where'd he go? Where is he? Okay, there we go, there we go. Come on, come on. Whoa! Eat hammer, bro. Alright, you're mine. Oh, I missed. Right. Heal up quick. Get one more strike in. Here we go, here we go. Yes! Woo! We got him. I went right over to Nock to let her know of my triumph, as she presented me with my new armor set. This all-black iron wing set was absolutely stunning. Oh, and these sapphire wings, I could craft now. I definitely knew what my next focus was. Grind out the resources to craft this dope armor. A lot of it was the metal and chitin I needed right here, so I stayed around for the rest of the day, basically to farm those resources. And it actually didn't take that long. By the end of the day, I had an awesome new set of armor that was also super strong. I was on the hunt for more clay, or at least a better spot to find some, and while exploring I came across another small folk. It was Tuhala, the one Lysandra mentioned. She told me about another troubled creature in the lands. It was another spider, the spider matriarch. While I agreed to take a look, it wasn't an immediate task. I stayed out down south to continue my search for clay. No luck with a really rich spot, but with my new armor I had some confidence in taking on these stag beetles. And they are ridiculously strong, but I was able to come away with a kill. The spider matriarch was quite close to my home. I'm surprised I never ran into it earlier, but since it was right here, I decided I'd make it my next objective. I was beaming with confidence with my new armor, so I thought, what the hell? I did some quick preparations and set out. While scouting its weakness, thinking I was safe, this mofo came out of nowhere and scared the crap out of me. Ah! Oh my good God, what the hell? He came out of nowhere! I don't know how that fight would have gone without this armor, but I was sure glad to have it. I went straight back to Tuhala to let her know I did her bidding, and she gave me another armor set to craft. This one, not quite as strong as mine, but it had an ability to heal you, and that sounded really interesting. Add it to the list of cool-ass armor that I will probably never use unless I 100% the game, which I just might do. Anyway, after dominating that fight, I just went ahead right on to the next boss, the King Stag Beetle. He was hiding out in this little cave area. I struggled a bit to get up there, and when I finally did, it was nighttime. And even though I couldn't see anything, I just went with it, because I didn't want to have to come all the way back here the next day. Like the other beetles, this guy had a lot of resistance. He was also doing a ton of damage. This was a much bigger challenge than the spider I just faced. Get off me! Get away from me! I can't even... What? He's so big! Get away from me, dude! That's what we need. Oh, alright, we got this. Let's get this. A couple more hits. Finish him off right here, right here. Yes! Let's go! This was the creature that was rumored to have the clover key. When I defeated him, I received the key and I went straight to the elder to let him know. I opened the walnut chest, hoping for the elixir of life, but instead I found a scroll. I gave it to the elder. Apparently it was written in the old tongue, which very few of them speak. So he sent me to Teodric, the historian, to have it translated. He resides near the giant's ancient sanctuary, aka the church, at the bottom of the map. But I hadn't been over there yet. The elder mentioned a huge gap in a broken bridge. Then he proceeded to reward me with a damselfly treat. So I figured I probably am going to need a flyer to get over there. But finding those were kind of hard, and I was anxious to see what was over there. My grasshopper has mad hops. It was at least worth a shot trying to get over there with him. So I rode him over there, up the giant stairs, and faced down the gap. It honestly wasn't that big. I didn't even think for a second that I wouldn't make it. I assumed he must have been talking about needing that damselfly for something else, because that was a super easy jump to cross. But this church was very unsettling. Hornets everywhere. And down low, these colony spiders, which swarm you like the gray flies. But the spiders and hornets, everything is much faster and way too deadly for my grasshopper. So I couldn't even take the time to stop moving and look around. I also just couldn't find him. He wasn't at ground level, so I knew he was either up high or down low somewhere, according to my tracker. But after losing my grasshopper, and eventually my own life, I knew I'd have to figure out a better way to explore that area. I went down to the beach to see if I could find a damselfly, but I didn't see one. Instead, I tamed a gecko. I didn't think it'd be anything super useful, but I hadn't done it yet. Turns out, it is pretty useless. My spider was stronger, and the gecko didn't really have anything unique about it. I was hoping maybe it could climb walls or something, but I couldn't seem to make it do that. Right back to trying to get a damselfly. I needed more firefly juice for the treat, so when night came around, I went out to hunt down some fireflies. I made some treats when the daylight came, and I went back to the beach and I found a damselfly. Its flight ability was decent, enough to get me up high, but you couldn't really fly forever with this thing. After some preparations, I made the long flight. I stayed near edges, avoiding the bees, and tried to get somewhere safe to actually be able to look around for Teodric. But I did not see him. I figured since I was apparently in need of this damselfly, he must be up high. But there was nothing up here except this hive. Could he be in the hive? That would be weird. But no, he was not. I was confused because earlier I dropped down low and there wasn't really anything down there either. So I was very lost here. But it obviously had to be somewhere. Maybe just even deeper than I was because there's nothing else up high. So I looked around a little more and I found this stairwell that led me underground. With no other options, I headed down, and sure enough, perched up in his sewer library, there he was. First thing he did was give me a hornet treat. Now I was hyped. Forget everything else. I wanted this bad. He also had new awesome armor for me. I asked him about the old tongue and if he could translate. He needed another book to help him translate the scroll, which of course he did not have. So I now had the task of going to the merchant and seeing if I could barter for the book that he pawned. But before I left, I discovered the almighty pyrite. It seems to be like the next upgrade to metal, and it's a highly sought after resource. There was a ton down here, but also it was pretty dangerous. Naturally, as soon as I got home, I checked what I needed for the hornet treat. It said I needed colony spider abdomen, but I just slaughtered a bunch of those, and I got none. It was either from something else or just a rare drop. I was hoping I just had what I needed and then I could go get my hornet, but I needed to do some research. But I did have enough pyrite for my hatchet, so I got that crafted at least. And then after investigating, I learned it is just a really rare drop. Or not super rare, but just not that common. So with one thing on my mind, taming a hornet, I went right back to the church and let the colony spiders swarm me. Their poison damage is pretty brutal, so it makes it tough to survive very long down here. After what felt like endless slaughtering, I only came away with one, but it was a start. I only need 3. I was tapped out with healing potions and poison resistance, so I had to take a good portion of the day to farm those resources to craft more, because I was still planning on going back down into that spider dungeon. And once I did, I went right back down in there. This time I didn't have to kill nearly as many, and I came away with 2 more. I went straight home to craft my hornet treat. There was always a hornet up near the scrap metal area, so I glided my way up there, attacked the hornet, and then claimed him as my own. So cool, yes! I messed around with his attacks. He was much stronger than anything I had. Still not totally OP or anything, but a big boost, and I was so happy to have him. I was in need of scrap metal, so while I was up there, I grabbed a bunch more, and then I thought about maybe exploring a little bit more. I had the wings, why not? So I started flying up north, but was quickly warned of danger. I freaked out, and I turned around immediately. This area was clearly off limits to me, but that didn't stop me from trying to make it across anyways. Wait, what's going on with the... Wait a minute. No. This hawk ripped me from my hornet, and that was the end of that. Thankfully, though, my hornet didn't die. Just me. So I was able to call him back with my whistle at base. I went back just because I was curious if I could make the jump with my grasshopper. And nope. Clearly, I'm not supposed to be over there yet. I guess I'll just have to keep pushing the story along first. Before heading to the merchant, I gathered a little more pyrite and did some exploring. I was really digging this crypt area. There's so many cool things down here. But eventually I made my way to the merchant. In exchange for some pyrite, he sold me the tome I needed for the historian. So I hopped right back over there to deliver. And upon translation, it was revealed that the apothecary, Melkar, was able to discover the elixir using an ingredient from the giants themselves, which can only be acquired in the Forbidden Lands. AKA the place I can't reach because a giant hawk is gobbling me up every time I try to cross. But there was some good news. Melkar found a secret passage across, and he detailed its location. The position was marked on my map, and I could now make my way to the Forbidden Lands. I hopped on my hornet and I headed straight there. It was a tiny little secret door stashed at the base of the bridge. As I headed in, it was pitch dark and I forgot my torch. But I simply used my antenna sense to navigate the long, windy tunnel. It was a little mazy, but I found my way. I quickly noticed the bugs over here were much stronger, and this black hornet, so dope. I knew I'd be getting one of these ASAP, but I fought some other people, the Ether. Apparently there are enemy small folk in this world, and I did not know this. They were a bit too tough for me though, so I let them be for now. I continued exploring, gathering new resources, and encountering new creatures. But nighttime came and I wanted to sleep through it, so that I could actually see what I was exploring. But home base was far away, so I quickly crafted a bed, except I accidentally set it as a respawn point. So now I was stuck over here. The only way back was that annoyingly windy path through the tunnel. I figured I might as well stay out here and explore as much as I could before heading back. There were more human structures over here, and the ultimate enemy, the blue tit. But I wasn't about to mess with him. I continued exploring until I found Malik. He told me about the Ether tribe and how their people do not get along with my people. Some sort of ancient rift between us, but that is why they attacked me. Malik, on the other hand, is a trader and cares about one thing, making money. So he's friendly. He even offered to give me one of his birds, but it was gonna cost 500 hoots, something I barely have been able to get my hands on. And I also needed an egg. I was really intrigued by getting a bird, but the grind for this meant it was gonna take a long time. But Malik proved to be even more useful. For one, he told me where to go next to continue my search for the apothecary, and he told me how I could deal with the hawk so that I could actually cross the bridge. I needed to bring him 10 stink bug glands and he could solve my problem. I got to work. The stink bugs, though, are actually quite tough, and they aren't just roaming around in swarms, so farming them took quite a bit of time. Once I had them, though, I gave them to Malik, and he basically just turned me into a walking stink bomb. He said the stench will keep the hawk far away from me. Now that I didn't have to worry about it, I decided to explore a little further north. I don't think the bird would have gotten me up here, but now I don't have to worry about it at all. I can fly freely through these skies. Or so I thought. Just as I was making my way over the fence and into the desert, I started taking damage, and it was massive damage. At first I thought it was a storm, then I thought it was just another world barrier like the bird. I just assumed this area was off limits, so I turned back immediately before my Hornet got wrecked. But as I curiously looked out into the road, I noticed that I was getting shot at by cannons. This was no world barrier, it was just an enemy. I explored and pushed up to the barrier as safely as I could without getting shot. I found my way to a man named Granger. He told me about a new weapon he could craft me, but I had more resources I had never even seen that I needed to bring him first. So another thing that would have to wait. Once daylight came around, it was time to head back home to my big tree. I braced for the flight over the bridge, and no attack. I was free to fly. Some of those newer resources enabled me to upgrade my gear and weapons. After I got that, it was time to begin the ridiculous grind for pyrite. So in order to get my bird, I need 500 hoots. You can get hoots 2 different ways. Buying them with pyrite, or getting them as drops from fighting the ether. I was quite underpowered to be taking on ether, and I didn't know at the time how many they drop or if it was even worth it. So I just stuck to what I know, grinding. Anyway, I got what I could for now before heading home, then right back out to the church because I also needed colony spider abdomen. I was ready to upgrade my Hornet and get that black Hornet, but I needed more of these stupid abdomen. So once again, I sliced through spider after spider after spider, and immediately, after I got my treat, I was ready to find myself the black Hornet. I spotted my guy and I started attacking. This Hornet wasn't just cooler looking, it was a higher level, had better HP, better attack, and better stamina. I was pretty excited about it. And anxious to explore more, I made another trip up north. I was able to skirt my way around the turrets to push further up. I noticed a pit rich with pyrite. It would have been a great place to farm had it not been a tarantula home. That's a big nope. And then a salt pepper rich cave, except this cave belongs to a viper. Yeah, that's a mega nope. I just got this bee, I wasn't about to lose it. And then I tried to get some sulfur, but this horned beetle had other ideas. It freaking one-shot me. I mean, how underpowered was I for this area? If I was gonna do some more exploring up this way, I'd probably need to do some upgrades, which is what I did. And also I crafted the composite bow, which I think is the best bow available. And I hadn't used the bow all that much, but I was really starting to see a need for ranged weapons against these tougher enemies. I had another day of farming ahead of me. All these new resources and things to craft were calling my name. The reishi mushrooms for leather, which allowed me to upgrade my gear, ironwood 2, then sulfur, and saltpeter I'd need to unlock the gun Granger can craft me. Granger mentioned something about the towers not being able to operate if no one was in them. So I approached one and I took on the guards. Just as he told me, the tower shut down once I defeated them. Now I had a way to clear the skies to make flying over here easier. And at the end of the day, I headed south to the church for another round of pyrite farming. This will pretty much be a regular thing until I get the 2,000 I need to buy 500 hoots to get my bird. I'll either pop over here at the beginning or end of the day to spend 5 to 10 minutes farming. That way I can knock it out in small chunks. I started doing some prep work to be able to take on some of these tougher creatures. Being poisoned by everything makes it all worse, so I wanted to farm up some poison antidotes. I was missing the poison gland, so I went to hunt them down. The Black Widow seemed to be my best bet. It's a guaranteed drop each time. So, back to Spiderland. Tag teaming these widows with my Black Hornet was a piece of cake. I got what I needed and headed back to make poison antidotes and a bunch of health and stamina potions too. And then, more pyrite. Yay! After all this time, I finally upgraded my bed. Not sure the benefit, but it looks cool. I headed back up north to face off with some of these tougher creatures. I took on the tarantula first. Then, feeling good about taking it down, I moved on to the viper. I potioned up and then headed into the cave. But after not much time, I realized I was still very underpowered. So I called on my Hornet to join the fight. The Viper one-shot my Hornet. I was pissed. I knew there was no way I could take him down now, but I was so mad I was just gonna fight to my death. However, I got lucky, and he got stuck, so I gladly hammered away my anger. His health was rapidly regenerating. I think it's because he's stuck, but it made the process much longer, so it took about 5 minutes, but I gladly got out all my frustration in that time. Very therapeutic. And in the end, I got his parts and unlocked a new weapon. Even without my bee, I pushed on, heading toward the last NPC on my map. The grappling and wings still make travel fairly easy without a rider. I got all the way to this scorpion temple and I headed up toward the altar, but before I could enter, it was asking for 6 scorpion telsons. So I had to go hunting. The scorpions are tanks. These things are not easy to fight. They'll claw you, and they'll poke you, and they'll do massive damage and poison you. It's gonna take a lot of potions to take 6 of these down. I slowly started to get used to their moves, but I only got 2 down before I was killed by a tarantula hawk. Back at base, while here, I crafted myself the new viper saber that I unlocked, and it was powerful. And since my hornet died, I had to go back to the church to get colony spider abdomen to make another hornet treat so that I could tame a new one. I had a day of farming to do in order to prep for going on the scorpion hunt, more poison antidote especially, but some other things too. And then it was time to hunt. This time I tag teamed them with my hornet. And we made a pretty good team. Eventually we got what we needed, all 6 scorpion telsons. But before going back, I brought Granger some sulfur and saltpeter. It unlocked some new things, but I wanted that cannon he had. However, before he would teach me, I needed to help him with the scorpion problem he had. To do that, he needed a scorpion treat. So I made my way back to the scorpion temple, and I placed my tributes. I entered to talk to Sarnak, the high priestess of the scorpion. First, I asked about the apothecary. I still needed to find the elixir of life. She said her leader, Edric, would likely know more information, but he was holed up in his tower, full of defenses. Sounds like a final boss fight to me. She said to talk to Granger to see if he could help me get access. Then I checked her store to see what she had. More armor and a new weapon, but these costed hoots, unlike the other armor sets. Also, the scorpion treat was here, and that costed 75 hoots. I was a little torn. I was still saving my hoots for the 500 I needed to buy a bird, and I didn't have half of them yet. I really wanted more armor though. I had to make a tough decision. I ended up holding off on the armor and just bought the recipe for a scorpion treat. And the endless pyrite farming continued. This time I found something though. Down in the crypt I was just exploring a bit more to get every last bit of pyrite, and I found this workbench, and it gave me a new weapon type, the pyrite greatsword. I didn't know I could find weapons in the world. This had me wondering if there were others. I finished up farming and then went to the merchant to see how much progress I had made. I felt like I had farmed a ton already, and I was hoping that I was close. I bought as many hoots as I could, and I had a total of 291. I really thought I'd be much closer, but a whole lot more grinding is needed. Especially because I still have to use 75 to buy my scorpion treat, which is where I was off to next. I made the long journey up north to purchase the schematic for scorpion treats. They weren't too expensive, but I did need some frog flesh. I went to the swamp where I knew a couple frogs spawned in and hunted them down. My new viper saber was a nice touch to my weapons. It cut through the frogs nice and quick. And then I crafted a couple treats, one to give to Granger and one for myself to tame a scorpion. When I got to Granger, I gave him the scorpion treat and he gave me the schematics to craft a hand cannon. Then I asked about Edric. Granger pointed me to a pathway that would lead me to his stronghold, but he said it would be heavily guarded. There was a way to maybe lure him down. I'd have to look into that when I'm ready to face his guards. For now, I had other things on my mind, like this hand cannon, and getting myself a scorpion. Even my best weapon still struggles to do a ton of damage to these guys, but for taming, I only needed to be halfway. This one was a fighter, but I got myself a brand new armor-plated beast. Holy crap, its health! The very first thing I noticed was it had 4,000 health. My Hornet had like 800, and that was the best one I had so far. This thing was an actual tank, and its health was rapidly regenerating. This thing is OP. I think I just found a way to legitimately take on the Viper, which is exactly what I went to do next. I entered his cave, and I started attacking. No one-shots against my Scorpion. His defenses were much stronger than the Hornet, and he could actually take some damage from the Viper. But ultimately, my stamina couldn't hold up and the snake was doing way more damage to me faster than I could do it in return. I really didn't want to risk my brand new scorpion, so I ended up bailing on the fight. But it gave me a lot more confidence to take one of these down going forward. First though, I had a hand cannon to craft. I already had the resources, it wasn't that expensive. The ammo, on the other hand, was a bit grindy to get. It needed lots of saltpeter, lots of sulfur, lots of wood for charcoal, and lots of iron. So I had some more grinding to do. Once I finally got some crafted, I had to test it out. I found something a little more tanky to blast it with. It's a very slow use weapon, but my God, it is powerful. And now I really felt unstoppable. With my scorpion mount and hand cannon, what could stop me? Other than the grind for the ammo. I could only make a little, but after seeing how OP it is, I went to town and spent a lot of time farming the resources to craft more. I was planning on truly putting the hand cannon to the test and going after the Viper. I didn't want to risk my scorpion, so I quickly tamed another, then made my way into the den. I loaded up my cannon and fired away. Whoa, let's go. You got no chance, bro. My scorpion was a great distraction while I annihilated the Viper. This thing was truly unstoppable.
Hey, nice job, bud.
As powerful as I felt, though, I still had a couple more upgrades I wanted to do with my armor. I just needed a few more scorpion chitons, so I did some scorpion hunting. They are much easier to take down now. And once it was upgraded, I was pretty confident in approaching Eodric's stronghold to continue my quest. But that really felt like the last thing. So before I did that, there were a couple things I still wanted to do. I still really wanted a bird, but the pyrite wasn't flowing as quickly as I'd hoped. I ended up crafting this catapult, which made getting to the church a little bit quicker. But really, just a fun way to travel. And then I farmed, and farmed, and farmed some more. But it wasn't just pyrite. I got more of everything. One last mega farming run to get all that I needed for when I do eventually head to Eodric's tower. So even though I hadn't gotten quite enough hoots, I wanted to actually go after the egg. I was excited to see what my cannon would do against this bird. Me and Scorps hunted down the mighty blue tit and its nest. I let Scorps go in for the distraction. I took aim and I fired away. Yet another foe who is just no match for my cannon. I axed up the bird's nest and I collected an egg. And then I tried a different method for farming hoots. These ether enemies were challenging before, but with my upgraded armor, my super cannon, and Scorps, they were not too bad to fight, and actually a much better way to farm hoots. A nice benefit is they also drop potions, so it's completely worthwhile now that I'm capable of actually fighting them. This got me excited, because I was pretty over farming pyrite. So I spent some time slaying the ethers. I also tracked down the white chest pieces. You can buy a new set of glider wings and an armor from Malik once you do. So I took some time to find all 6 white pieces for the wing set, and more new discoveries while doing so. I found another workbench in the wild that unlocked some pretty strong weapons, and I crafted the Etherean hammer, and also my new wing set. These wings had a special feature. You could actually flap with them and gain altitude. These things were legit. It was time to actually just get my bird. I committed to grinding as much as I needed to get the rest of the hoots. Fighting the ether actually made this process way more bearable, a lot more fun than mindless pyrite farming. But I also took down these towers and got the hoots from the guards. Now I had free airspace to fly in, 2 birds with 1 stone. I had to go all the way to the merchant to exchange my pyrite, but I finally had it. Just barely enough to get my bird. I went to Malik and he presented me with my prize. I took flight and admired this world, which now felt tiny. I could fly across the whole map in seconds. Unfortunately, he can't attack while you're on him, but he is still insanely useful. The time was here, and I was ready. I loaded up my inventory with all the heals and all the firepower. Then, I made the trek with my scorpion. I knew I'd need him in battle, so I couldn't just fly my bird out here. We approached the base of the tower and began taking on the ether. Slowly, we pushed up through this heavily guarded city, taking down ether after ether. All enemies I was familiar with, but that didn't make it easy. We got up near the base of the tower and I saw my first armored hornet. I didn't even bother. I switched to my cannon to make quick work of it. Then we climbed. I fought every ether in my path and climbed some more, but they seemed endless. Eventually, me and Scorps just ran our way past all the enemies and up the narrow pathway. It was a long journey up top. It took us all the way into nighttime, but eventually we made it into the tower. I activated this switch and out came the boss. But my clumsy scorpion fell down into this green sludge water, and I had no way out. I drowned. All that work for nothing. That tower climb legit took about 30 minutes and another 10 minutes or so to get over there, and I didn't even get a single hit in. That sucked. I did not want to make that climb again, so I said screw it. I'm gonna take my bird and fly up there. I knew I'd have to be careful of the turrets, but if I can find an opening, I might be able to land. So, very carefully, I found a gap, and I landed my bird at the top. But when I went in to activate the fight, it was still going on. However, Aedric was nowhere to be found. It was bugged. Another big letdown. I was starting to think this wasn't going to happen. I went home, then came back, and the same thing. After quite a while of feeling disappointed, I simply tried logging out and then back in. And of course, that worked. So, back to the tower and time to fight. I only had one weapon worth using, the cannon. But his whip was doing massive damage, and it had range. I had to burn through my ammo and my healing potions, but I was able to take him down. He flew up to the roof, and I followed, only to take on his hawk. My cannon took too long to reload its shots. He did massive damage each time, and I was already basically out of healing potions. I had to be very careful, but his relentless pecking and my lack of healing made this a long fight that I ultimately was outmatched for. He bested me. So, back to the drawing board. I had to decide how to move forward. My biggest weakness in the fight was running out of healing potions. There was some armor I could upgrade to, but I figured if I just had more healing, I could have finished the fight. So instead of grinding out for a whole better armor set, I simply upgraded my final Iron Wing piece to the max level. But I also burned through my ammo, so the long grind for more sulfur and saltpeter had to continue as well. I spent another couple days farming, but once I was ready, I flew right back up there. Equipped with more than twice as many healing potions, I took on Aedric once again. This first part, I had no problems. I just tried to manage my potions and not burn through them too quickly. When he went to the roof, I began attacking, but my timing was off. I struggled to dodge his attacks, and it made me burn through my potions even faster. I was getting wrecked. I tried throwing stink bombs, but they only poisoned me and did basically nothing to him. Then he came in with an attack he hadn't done in a while, and I was not ready for it. It was enough to finish me off. So now I was feeling defeated. That time, it wasn't the potions. I just couldn't get away from him. My timing was off, and I could not dodge his attacks. I figured my only hope now was to actually upgrade to a better armor set. But my only options were going to require a lot of farming, and as I began collecting the resources for it, it was taking way too long. I decided to give it one more go with my current armor, but I was going to load up on even more health potions and spam the crap out of them. I had a new strategy, so after another tedious couple of days of farming, it was once again time. Inside in the first part, I took him down with little wasting of my health potions. When we got up top, I was locked and loaded, both with ammo and the strongest healing potions. I had more than 30 of them. The strategy was this: dodge his peck, load my gun, absorb his attack, blast him in the face, heal up, run, and then repeat. After a long battle, my strategy paid off. I was victorious. Aedric was defeated and his hawk was freed. I made my way into his home and I discovered the truth. Melkar had become obsessed with the powers the elixir had given him, and his overconsumption turned him mad. He reinvented himself and called himself Eadric. Our long-lost apothecary Melkar essentially became immortal and lived long enough to establish a whole new colony of people, the Ether. I found the elixir of life in his lab, and I grabbed it. But there was also a new set of wings to collect. Once I grabbed all I could, I headed straight back to the Elder to give him the elixir. He was surprised by Melkar's truth, but he agreed that I did what I had to do. I gave him the elixir, and he headed to the Queen's castle to save her life. I did it! I saved our queen and I protected our people. I was now considered a champion, and I was honored by our people. I received an incredible great sword as my reward, and I was greeted by the sacred owl. The elder told me they were proud and will continue to look for my aid in the face of new dangers and challenges anytime they are presented, and I look forward to it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, even just a fraction of how much I enjoyed playing it. If you did enjoy yourself, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It helps so much, and it gives other people a chance to see it as well. I appreciate you more than you know, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you on the next one. Peace. This is Smalland, an incredible survival experience where you can build a stronghold, craft epic armors and weapons, and tame the local wildlife. Your task is to explore the lands of the giants, fight terrifying enemies, and ultimately save your small folk queen. I spent 100 days here conquering everything I could, but every time I check the Steam page, it seems like they've added new content, which is awesome. Well, now I'm back with a ton of new stuff to explore, to craft, to fight, and to tame. I had such a good time that I had to come back for more. And what better way to experience everything than to do 100%? That's my goal. But the Steam achievements are honestly pretty lackluster. So I'm adding my own. 1. Craft every armor in the game. That includes the specialty faction armors, which require a ridiculous amount of a certain annoying resource. 2. Craft every weapon in the game. There's a number of secretive weapons, and I'll be showcasing how to acquire those for a complete list. And number 3, tame every creature. According to the patch notes, there are 38 plus a couple more new ones to tame, and I am gonna catch every single one. Then I'm going to showcase everything at the end so you can get an idea of all this world has to offer, including a few surprises that even caught me off guard. What the fuck? Let's get into it. But before we get started, real quick, I completed the 23 achievements just by playing through normally in my 100 days playthrough. Feel free to check that video out if you want that in-depth experience. But if you came to this video for achievements, no worries, I got you. I will go over every achievement again in this video at the end, so you can go ahead and skip to that part if that's what you showed up for. Chapters are down below to help you find whatever you clicked on this video for. Okay, let's get started. I jumped back into this world just a day after a major patch release, the World Rebalance Update. So, as of January 23, 2025, this is everything that I missed out in my last 100-day playthrough. One of the biggest changes, which happened right after I finished that playthrough, was the Taming update. This added a new method for taming and gave the ability to tame almost anything in the game. A huge improvement from the somewhat limited options beforehand. But I didn't get too deep into that right from the start. The plan was to tame everything, so there would be plenty of time to dive into that new mechanic. There was some other newly added things and updates that I wanted to check out first. One of those was more options for your tames. They added a pet bonding system, which allows you to improve the relationship with them, giving you added benefits. They added traits, giving each specific tame unique properties, and an incapacitation system, so that your tames don't just die off immediately, which kind of happened a lot. And they also added the ability to have multiple tames in your party. Before, you could only have one, so a nice addition. It was based on a point system, so you could have a total of 4 or up to 100 points. More powerful tames obviously have higher points. But first things first, I grabbed my 2 strongest tames to see what kind of damage I could do on the nearest boss. I headed to the spider matriarch near my base, and I gave it a test run. This is basically like the first or second boss, so one scorpion would have been enough to destroy this thing because that's already OP. The fact that I could now roam around though with 2 scorpions kind of made me feel invincible. Next, I wanted to check out some of the new parts of the map. There's a new campsite area and expanded treetops area. So I took Birdman, my blue tit, for a flyover to have a quick look. I wanted to explore this area on foot as it's always cooler to see it from ground level perspective, but for now, I was just kind of quickly exploring, checking things out. Also, new air cannons, and the ones I took out before apparently were back, which meant my flyover made a little bit more difficult. So I'll come back later at another time. Then back to my base to have a look at the treetops update. This was also a somewhat hefty update. Previously, the treetops were not interconnected and there was nothing but branches. You could still kind of move around, but not really. But now they've made it so that you can traverse the treetops seamlessly. They added creatures and a couple of resources up here, and there's a new resource, Lichen, which comes with a new craftable as well. In addition to that, they added a new creature, the Mantis, and a new boss Mantis version, incubators, base raids, and traps to stop those raids. All that stuff, which I will get into shortly. For now though, I just explored the new treetops to see how it felt. Once it got dark, I went back to base to continue checking out a few of the smaller quality of life updates. For one, they added remote crafting. This is huge. Let me just take a second to beg any developer, future developer, anyone involved in making any sort of crafting game, please just put remote crafting in from the start. There's really no reason not to, and it makes everyone's life much easier. Thank you. This feature was only added in the World Rebalance update, so literally just a day before I started this new journey, and I'm so thankful for it, because when you have to have 20 different chests because of the variety of resources, not having remote crafting is a nightmare. Another feature they added at some point was the need for fuel for certain crafting stations. This is one change I was not super pleased about. It kind of felt unnecessary, and I don't know how much of a feature it is. But at least they added this feature, albeit later on, that you could now prioritize fuel types so that you're not burning all of the resources that you just worked so hard to gather. I use all these resources so frequently though, it kind of sucked. I now had to literally burn them. It just meant a lot more grinding. And the final thing I checked out on my first kind of day were these small little animations they added to the crafting tables. Now, this was a welcome change. A very small change, but it definitely helps with the immersion and gives more life to the world, so definitely a welcome addition. My base was feeling pretty cramped, and with new things to craft, I was going to have to expand. In my 100 days playthrough, I made it a point not to get too obsessed with building. After just a few minutes, I kind of had the same feeling again. There are some really nice features for building in this, but also some really frustrating things. So I stuck to practicality instead of building a big, beautiful castle. There weren't any building updates other than maybe a few added building pieces with the building mechanics, or anything like that didn't change all that much, so I didn't really feel the need to spend too much time on it. I was getting ready to set up and test the new egg incubator. It very clearly tells you that when you incubate something, it will send a raid, so I wasn't sure where to put it. All I know is it's probably not safe to put it inside my base, but I needed an egg first, so I set out on my unstoppable army of 2 to see what I could find. I wanted to test out my 2 scorpions against the viper, one of the most formidable opponents in this world. But on the way out to its cave, I got sidetracked by a world event. These events give you contribution points, something I needed to unlock the certain faction armors and weapons. And they only happen every 15 minutes or so, or maybe even longer, it might be 20, and they give you no more than 10 contribution points, usually less, like 5 or 6. But you literally need thousands of these if you're going to unlock everything. This was my biggest fear going in. How insanely grindy is this actually going to be? I remembered in my 100 days playthrough that I did one of these. I was very underpowered, and I realized it was not worth the effort at all, so I didn't even bother doing them before. But now I had no choice. I had to go after everyone that popped up for those contribution points. Now that I had scorpions, the event itself is super easy though. especially when it's these one-shot gray flies. It took longer to get over here than it did to actually complete it. And as you could see with these weaker enemies, I only got 6 contribution points. So now just 15 more events, and I'll be able to buy 1 of the 20 things I need. Good God, this is going to suck. At least that's what I thought at the time. Thankfully, there was a better way, but I hadn't discovered that yet. What I did get that was even more valuable than points was a couple of eggs. This is what I needed for the incubators. But since I was in the area, I continued exploring around the new campsite a little bit. Although night came pretty quick, I didn't want to explore when I couldn't see anything, so back to base where there were some other new things I could check out. There were a few things here and there, like this repair totem they added in the quality of life update, but I mostly had to spend time rearranging. If I was about to overload my inventory with all the new weapons, armors, etc., I was going to need to stay organized and create a little space. So I did that until I got some daylight so that I could go back and check out that campsite area. First I made my way to the new NPC, Bonnie Dell, but in order to talk to her, I had to bring her some Forest Delight. I didn't even know what that was at this point, so I just figured I'd come back later. In addition to the new NPC and this new area, which added some nice new detail to the world, the campsite update also brought a new creature, the mouse, and a mouse boss type creature, along with some new resources. Also, some new consumables, rodent dumpling and rodent brew. I parked my Birdman on top of the garbages where the mice reside and went to see if I could take one down. I didn't have my Scorpion with me, but I really didn't need him. The hand cannon is ridiculously powerful, so I just used that to take it down. And I unlocked the new rodent armor. But I was going to need a lot more of those mouse resources in order to craft it, so I continued looking around for more mice, until I stumbled upon the Hoarder Mouse. Oh my god, this thing is so OP. I love it. Just takes forever to reload. Can do that on me. I don't know how much damage he's actually going to do to me. Okay, that's a little bit. Just gotta get a couple more shots though. He is pretty quick. I gotta just make sure not to get hit. Like that. Okay. Reload. Nope. Let's go get one more shot off. Nope, we're just gonna do this. Come on, finish him, finish him. Nice. That wasn't bad. He actually did a bit of damage though, I'm surprised. In my earlier days, he would have been a much more formidable foe, but with my weapons and armor, he was actually quite easy to take down. I continued exploring his tent. I figured there had to be something valuable hiding in here, and sure enough, I found a mouse infant nest. This had a health bar, similar to the bird's nest, so I knew what to do exactly. Break it open and collect my prize. Oh, what the fuck? I can't. I was not expecting that. I mean, I guess it's not going to be an egg, but oh, that is so gross. Oh, why would they do that? Except I was not expecting a disgusting mouse fetus. Before I went back to get into the incubation stuff, it was daylight again, so it gave me a chance to continue exploring this new area. I noticed a locked door when I first came out here. It's sitting right underneath Bonnie Dell's little workshop. And when I killed the Hoarder Mouse, I got a tunnel key. So I went over to see if it worked on the one closed door I found. And sure enough, I found a secret tunnel. Pretty neat, except there wasn't really anything in there. A decent reserve of pyrite and some colony spiders. And that was it. So I continued on, looking around the area and trying to kill some bugs to see if I could get more eggs so that I could start experimenting with the incubations. Once I felt good about exploring, I headed back with my decent collection of eggs. But before I got into that, I realized Forest Delight is just something you cook in your oven. I had what I needed already, so I baked that, then flew back to Bonnie Dell. Unfortunately, she didn't have much to say, just some nonsense about a rock that she found, and some information about where to find the mice, and a hint at that secret door that I already found. But literally every other conversation was a dead end. I wasn't sure if there was something else I needed to do or progress to get her to do something, but I guess she is literally just there to give you information, so that was a pretty big bummer. All the other NPCs have some sort of value, a quest, items to buy, etc., but she was kind of worthless. Unless, of course, I missed something, and I really hope I did, because I looked all over and I couldn't find any other purpose for her. I even went back multiple times later on in my playthrough, but never found a purpose for her. So, time to move on. On my way back to base, I had another event to stop at. This time, a bunch of bull ants. Again, super easy, but still, I only got the 6 contribution points for it. A little time had passed, at least enough for more mice to respawn. I mostly wanted to go test out my scorpions against them. I figured it'd be good to have multiple mice fetuses in case the first one doesn't go so well, because the only way to tame the mice is by incubating that fetus and defeating them in the raid. My scorpion made taking down the border mouse even faster than my hand cannon, so I quickly grabbed round 2 of my mouse resources. Then on my way back, yet another event. This one was up in the trees though, in the new treetops area, and against a new foe. This was my first mantis encounter, and it was the elite mantis. It might not look it, but you probably don't want to run into one of these early game. With my scorpion and bird, it was a pretty unfair fight for the mantis, but on foot this thing is a much more challenging opponent. Once I defeated him though, I collected his parts and unlocked the new mantis armor and weapon. I had a decent buildup of eggs, so it was finally time to put the incubator to test. Made sense to start with something easy to kill, so I grabbed the bull ant egg and I started incubating it. I had no idea where they'd be coming from, or how many, or even how strong the incubators were. But with my egg incubation sitting right there out in the open, I planned to just take them all down before they even got to it. So this was really just a test, and I passed it. It was much easier than I expected. I definitely thought it would be at least as many ants as the event had, but nope, this was really easy. Once you defeat the enemies, you have to wait about 5 minutes for the egg. Some harder creatures take a little bit longer, but most of them are 5. I just waited around my base until my first incubated egg was ready, and I hatched a bull ant. I tested out another egg I had, the colony spider. These guys are way more annoying than ants, so I wanted to see how much more difficult it would be for the incubation event. Some of my other creatures got involved in the fight, but still wasn't very difficult. It was becoming apparent how easy these raids are going to end up being. My very squishy bull ant went down in the fight. Kinda cool though, it has a trait that releases a gas explosion upon its death. Not that I really needed it, but still cool nonetheless. This gave me an opportunity to try the revive incense, a newly added thing to the game. In my first 100 days, if your creatures died, they just died, but now you have a chance to revive them. However, they can still take damage in this state and die for good, so you can still lose them. I used the revive incense and brought it back to life, but there was something game-changing I discovered after this. I realized these incubations were actually giving me contribution points. This was massive because now I just needed to get the eggs, which I could actually just farm instead of having to tirelessly wait for events to just happen. So to get those contribution points, it was going to be much faster. I'm so happy that I caught on to this fairly early on. With this info, I went right back to testing different strategies for incubation. How could I get as many contribution points as fast as possible? That was my goal. Since they take 5 minutes to incubate each egg, my first thought was to just set up multiple incubations. I didn't know if it would even let you run 2 at a time, but you definitely can. You can run as many as you want. However, it can get overwhelming very quickly. The first attempt, I just incubated gray flies and colony spiders, both easy things to kill. But the problem here is that once your tames become incapacitated, you can damage them on your mount. So I was trying to be careful not to end my gecko or my spider for good. Honestly, they just got in the way because they died pretty much instantly. They are easy enough things to get again though, so I didn't bother reviving them. For the second attempt, I went with 2 cockroaches, a much harder creature to take down. I just partied up my 2 scorpions to make sure it was quick and easy. But here is where I discovered my second major problem. Oh no. Oh, another one down. That's not looking good here. Oh, and there it goes. Okay, well, that's how did they destroy those so fast? Holy crap, I did not think the cockroaches were that strong. your tames, except the one that you're riding, damage your structures. Oh no. The cockroaches didn't really need to do much because my scorpion wiped out all 3 incubators in seconds. So I was definitely going to have to figure something else out. I had to do more testing. I wanted to make sure it wasn't me doing damage to the incubators and only my tames. That way I could just keep them away from my structures, and that seemed to be true. I can do damage while on foot, but not while I'm on a tame, so I'll have to make sure to just stay on a tame. I wanted to get a full scale of how hard these raids might get, so I grabbed one of my mice fetuses. Since I figured that'd probably be one of the harder things to do, I crafted some of these new spikes that were meant for the raids and set up a tiny little trap. I had no idea what to expect. I positioned some of my stronger tames away from the incubator, thinking my little trap was just somehow going to stop everything and the whole fight was going to occur before they even made it to the incubator. I was wrong.
Here we go. Okay, that did absolutely nothing. Come on, man.
Oh crap, one's stacking it. Come on, get around.
I don't want him to destroy it. Oh, wow, he just wrecked that in like 1 shot. No, he's going for my base. Oh, no. Oh my god, he does so much damage. Holy crap. Come on, can we attack this one? Oh, wow. Get this one, get this one. Okay, he's down. Okay, the others are down too.
Yup, so the trap didn't work at all. And fighting 4 mice at once is much harder than I anticipated. I actually had to go out and do some farming to get resources to repair my base that was completely destroyed. I knew I'd have to come up with a decent strategy for those incubations if I was going to be farming them for contribution points. Also, if I don't want my base destroyed every time I try to get a mouse or something more difficult. But I at least had an idea of how they worked now. So while I formulated a good strategy, I want to check out the one last major change that I hadn't yet experienced. Taming with a trap. Before, it was simply you just bash the creatures in the head until its health is low, then you give it a specific treat, but now there are different treats for different level traps. The higher the trap, the more likely it is to capture it. I just wanted to see how it worked, so I grabbed some of my more basic traps and I went to find a super easy tame, the grasshopper. It's as simple as putting it down, then the creature will automatically go for it, but even the lowly grasshopper is not so easily tamed. I went back to craft a couple more. I did see somewhere that injuring them still helps you capture it. So on the second attempt, I got its health low and I tried to put the trap down. The only problem is you can't do it while they attack you. So it's probably best to put the trap down first, then quickly attack it before it makes it there. Either way, I got it down and knocked this little guy out and got myself my first trap tame. I wanted to see if I could find a mantis, so back into the treetops I went to collect that new resource, lichen, and nearby I had my first regular mantis encounter. And then I took down a couple more. I got a mantis egg and the tibial spine, which is what unlocked the mantis weapon. I had a couple eggs from killing some beetles in the treetops, so I used those to gather up a few more contribution points. And it was here that I realized the most important thing. When you cancel the incubation, it says something about a refund. So I was generally just curious if it gives you the egg back. It does not, but what it does not take away from you is your contribution points, which meant I only had to kill the attacking creatures. I did not have to wait the 5+ minutes for the egg to hatch. This was going to save so much time, and now I didn't even have to worry about trying to manage multiple incubators at once. This was so big. My goal now was basically to farm as many eggs as possible and just abuse the incubator, but I only had the mantis egg left. So I put that in, took down the few easy mantis who attacked me, and I left that one cooked because I wanted to get myself a mantis for a tame. While I waited, I dropped down and went after the easiest thing to kill, ants, to start farming those eggs. The drop rate is pretty reasonable. I'd say about 1 in 5 drops an egg, and there's plenty of ants where it doesn't feel too grindy. But I was still going to need a lot. So I went around killing ants and everything else I could find. At first, I found bees a more effective way to collect eggs. There seemed to be more of them in a concentrated area, so that was kind of my strategy at first to get a bunch of these eggs. My mantis was finished, so I went back, gave him a little test ride, then right back to contribution point farming. The one thing I hadn't realized at this point is that different creatures give you different amounts of contribution points. So I was still focused on just using any eggs. I hadn't fully optimized my strategy yet. I worked through the bunch of bee and ant eggs I had, and it really didn't take too long. This strategy is already making life so much easier compared to trying to wait for events just to get contribution points. It took almost no time at all before I had the first 90 I needed to get my first faction piece of armor, the butterfly gliding wings.
Oh man, no upward thrust on them. I don't know why I thought I'd be able to do that, but at least I got them. They're super cute. They're so little. I thought they'd be bigger. Just adorable. Wow, not having that upward thrust is so different. I'm so used to it. It feels so limited without it.
On the way back, another event. Something I noticed really helpful about these events is how many eggs that I can get from them. That's about 6 contribution points from the event itself, and then another 24 to 30 more just from all of those eggs that I pick up. So it was actually beneficial still to take the time to go and do these events when they do pop up, because I can get a lot of eggs from them. When I got back, I did another round of raids with the eggs that I had just got. With these ants and bees, they are so easy, I decided to just go back to a 2 incubator strategy. If I just incubate them both at the same time, then take my scorpion out to the branch where they spawn, since they come from the same spot every time, it was easy enough and helped me speed things up a little bit. And after no more than 30 minutes just farming eggs and doing these raids, I already had almost enough contribution points for my second piece of armor. This was actually becoming a fairly quick process, much less grindy than I originally anticipated. I was burning through metal crafting arrows and some other things like always, so I made a trip out to farm a bunch of metal. While out there, I hit up another event with gray flies. After collecting like 5 eggs in less than 60 seconds, it reminded me of how easy these gray flies are, and I figured they'd be a good potential for farming eggs. Especially because where you usually farm metal, or at least the best spot to do it, there are so many of them, and it could be a really good spot to just get a ton of eggs quickly. After more egg farming though, another elite mantis event popped up. I wanted to try this one on foot just because I was curious.
Ooh, he's doing work. Oh, ow, wow. Okay, let's get out of here. This is not working for me. Ooh, he's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. So jump. Oh, man.
And oh man, this guy was seriously no joke. I quickly bailed on the fight and went back to get my scorpion like a coward to make my life easier. But still, this thing put in work on my scorpion. It seemed a lot tougher than the first one I encountered. I knew I'd be taking on some tougher incubations, so I tested out another new strategy and closing it. Even these weak gray flies do significant damage to the leaf structures, but having it enclosed definitely helped a little. This was really just a test. If it worked, the plan was to secure it with some metal structures. The next thing though I tested to see was if you could just repair it as they're damaging it. Repairing structures are free, and this definitely worked. But as you saw with the mouse, it one-shot this thing basically because they don't have much health. So while this might work with the gray flies, it's probably not going to be an effective strategy for tougher things. I pretty much settled on the idea of trying to enclose it for harder enemies and just try to be quick with the weaker ones. I had another event pop up. I don't intend to showcase every event, but this one was unique. A bunch of lubbers. I didn't even know that these could be events. I thought it was pretty much just ants or flies or whatever, but I was glad to see it. I was disappointed though when I didn't get a single egg from one of them. I had one last thought for where to get an abundance of eggs for the incubator though. One of the most annoying areas in my 100 days playthrough was this colony spider den underneath the chapel. They swarm you non-stop, at least that's what I remember. And if you have the weapons or a scorpion in this case, killing them is actually quite easy. So I headed down underground to seek out these tiny poisonous little critters. It definitely felt like there were fewer than I remember. Something felt like it changed, like they were just less spawning, but it was still good enough and worthwhile. I got a good haul of eggs in a very short amount of time, and this instantly became my preferred location to farm eggs. Also, I didn't know it at the time, but the colony spider eggs give 8 contribution points compared to the 6 from ants and flies or 5 from bees. So this was definitely the best and most effective way to get those contribution points fast. So that's what I set out to do, over and over and over again. They were relentless, those little guys, and my base did take some damage, but nothing that I couldn't repair. I moved all the stuff inside my base away from those walls to the other side so that I didn't have to keep crafting new crafting stations. And within just about 30 minutes of base raids, I had more than enough points to get the full armor set for Drastana. The wings cost 90 and the suit is about 200 total. I gathered the resources, which I mostly had already, and then went back to her to get my prize.
Hey, there it is. I like that. Looks like a Power Ranger. It looks dope. I really like this. This might be one of my favorite ones.
I continued my grinding with getting eggs and running raids, occasionally hatching a few of the creatures that I knew I'd need when I collect everything, like the wasp. There was also a good bit of farming mixed in there. I needed clay for metal structures when I eventually planned to make metal defenses for the mice, and also a good bit of metal farming, such is the case always in all survival situations. But anytime I was out and about farming one resource, I would always be looking to slay some bugs and get more eggs. I spent another 30 to 40 minutes doing raids before I had enough for the first armor piece from the second faction, the Mandibular Great Axe. I took some time exploring a little bit more. I'm always curious to see if there's something I'm missing out on, but it also gave me a chance to collect some eggs from the higher level creatures, like tarantulas and scorpions. The ether drop hoots, which are a currency for things, and after running into a bunch of them on my way out there, I ended up at Sarnak, an NPC with story quests, but also things you can purchase. I still had to get myself the schematic for the Telson hammer, so it was a very worthwhile trip out here. After just coming to explore and not really finding anything new necessarily, I actually ended up getting a lot done, so a good trip. The next event I ran into was a particularly tough one, the Tarantula Hawk. Probably the hardest one yet.
There are a lot of these. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Oh, I need more stamina. Not good.
Oh crap, we gotta go, get out. Oh, wow, they almost killed me. Oh, that was scary. It nearly destroyed my scorpion, and I can honestly say, for the first time, I was actually scared to lose it. This was my leveled up scorpion, and if it went down, I wouldn't be able to revive it in time. I don't know if they attacked the downed creatures, but I wasn't willing to find out. So I ran. I parked my scorpion far away so that it could heal, and then I attempted this on foot. I figured I had enough points if I can single them out and I could just do this one by one. But my confidence was definitely inflated quite a bit, considering I had the endgame armor and weapons, and pretty much everything else I've come across has been a manageable task. However, this group of really difficult tarantula hawks definitely tested my skills, and well, they were just overmatched for me. And they got me. I did get an egg from one of them though, before I died, so now I could hatch one of my own. Anyways, I was kind of set on getting a mouse as well. I only had the one fetus, so I went back out to get mouse resources and another mouse fetus. To my surprise though, the Tarantula Hawk event was still going on afterwards, and there was still only the few left. More of them didn't respawn. My scorpion had full health, so I was able to dive back in and finish off the last few with my scorpion. Then back to the grind, farming eggs, squashing spiders. Eventually I incubated the Tarantula Hawk. Turned out to be a pretty easy raid considering only one showed up with a bunch of ants. Then I waited to hatch it, but I was sorely disappointed to find out that I could not ride it. Such a bummer. I stashed it near the others that I have hatched already and collected before, like the Black Hornet in my first 100 days playthrough, as I had slowly began collecting them all. I also did the Tarantula raid. It only sent 2 tarantulas, and it happened at night when I literally couldn't see anything, so you might not be able to either, but it was easy enough with my scorpions. I hatched him as well, and a regular hornet too. And by the daylight, I had more than what I needed for the next set of armor. It was time to make another attempt at getting a mouse, so I began setting up my metal enclosure to protect the incubation chamber, and then my metal structures. Since they just blew past it last time, I wanted to try to have multiple sections. The spikes did do some damage, so even if they just ran over them, hopefully they will be decently injured before I take them on. I also grabbed some of my stronger tames and put them out by the spawn point. This way they could do some additional damage to the mice before they ever got to me, and without risking my own tames destroying my structures, it seemed like a good idea. The reason I didn't go out there myself is because everything just sprints past you. Then you're stuck all the way out there while the attacking creatures are destroying your base. It was better for me to just stay back where I could actually protect things. I started the incubation, but forgot my walls. Before I could even get them on though, the mice came in full force. It happened so quick.
Oh, and they're here.
Oh, that didn't work. All right, Scorpion, where are you? Where are you? They're blocking him. I can't even get to him. Dude, get down. Oh, they do so much damage. Okay, one down. Woo, he's getting the walls and the house. What is this? Oh no, my other Scorpion's gonna destroy it, isn't it? Damn, they have such wide attacks. That is so crazy. Come on. Oh my god. It was hectic. They were doing massive damage. But the metal enclosure seemed to be doing its job. I didn't mean to have my other Scorpion there too, but the metal structure did just enough to protect it from multiple mice and my own Scorpion's damage. Success! I checked out how much damage was done. Overall, it was pretty significant. Even the incubator was down to 29% because I didn't have those walls on there, but it did do its job, and now I just had to wait. Also, I don't know how effective those spikes even are because I was so busy trying to get my walls up, I didn't get to see if they even worked or did any damage. While I waited for my mouse though, I did some more farming, metal, clay, more eggs, etc. And 7 minutes and 30 seconds later, which is how long it takes to incubate, it was all grown up. I gave it a bit of a test. It was pretty beastly, but I'd have to test it against something more formidable to really get a sense of how good it is. I'm still leaning towards the Scorpion, probably being a little stronger though. I got back into raids. Those spikes were pretty useless for everything else, unfortunately. All the creatures just ran alongside of the tree and completely avoided them. But since I was mostly just doing these weak creatures, I didn't care too much. However, it would have been nice to have a more automated defense system. So I just stuck to my Scorpions. Putting my bees and another Scorpion out on the branch though did help. The bees would actually attack them on the side of the trees where I couldn't go without falling down, so that was a bonus. It just made the process slightly faster, but not a massive improvement. I ran the mouse raid again, and this time it appeared my traps actually worked, but not so much for damage. Mostly it just blockaded them a little and got them stuck. Made it easier to kill them though before they got to the incubator, so I was happy about that, but I really wanted to try to get something more efficient. For now, until I go for another mouse, I just took the traps down because they were kind of in the way. Besides that, I just continued my routine grind until I was able to get the next set of armor from Scotty. I had just one last faction to gather my weapons and armor from, so I spent a little over an hour grinding those points, then gathered the resources I needed and headed to Lysandra, the Spider Lady. There it was, all 4 faction armors and weapons completed. There was definitely a temptation to just keep the grind going and unlock literally everything they had to offer, but 2 reasons I didn't. One, it's not an actual achievement, and the stuff you unlock, I just don't really care much about, like the face paintings, the banner, stuff that I wasn't all that interested in. But it's not as simple as just unlocking it. I'd have to get 250 points first just to access it, to unlock the tier. Then the additional 200 plus to unlock all the extra stuff. That would mean more than twice as much of a grind as what I had already done. And I was ready to start collecting the rest of the armors, weapons, and do the other objectives that I had set out for myself that were just a little bit more interesting. If they were official achievements though, I would absolutely do them. But thankfully, they're not. Since I was already on getting the armors, I figured I'd just keep it going and try to collect them all. Starting with the newest, the rodent armor, I had to go back out and get some more mouse resources because you really do need a lot. Grabbed another fetus while I was out there because why not? And since I still didn't have enough, I ended up running the mouse raid again. Mostly just to collect the resources. Instead of building a trap, I just added an extra layer of walls to my base. This actually helped a lot. But it didn't matter too much because I was able to take them down anyways. But there was this weird bug where it sounded like it was storming when it wasn't. So I just had to log back out and back in to try to fix it. But I discovered something. Okay, so it's still shaking. That's kind of lame. The bug is still there. Wait, what? What? What the heck? No! Oh, what is happening? What is happening? Where are my scorpions? Where are my scorpions? You're gonna destroy everything. Oh my god, they're stuck inside. Come on, follow. Get over here, please, please. Okay, there's one. No, oh my god, they're on my base too. What is happening? This is ridiculous. No, no! They're destroying everything. God, I have no stamina. Come on. No. Oh, what is going on? I can't even destroy them because I have no stamina. Everything. What the hell? Come on, get him, get him, get him. Get this one, get this one. Come on. It's mine. Bro, I can't even attack him. Oh. Oh my god. What the hell? What just happened? How is this even possible? Oh my god. If you log out and back in while something is in the incubator, it will resend whatever raid was happening. And I had a mouse in there. Tragedy. My scorpions were stuck inside my base because I spawned in with them in my party. So they always spawn next to you when you do that. And the mice didn't even care about the incubator. They just went right for my base. I had to take a lot of time picking everything back up and reorganizing things. I didn't even bother putting a wall back up. I just went with an open base design. Now that I had all the faction armor, I wasn't going to be doing many more raids. So I just saved a little time for now because honestly, reorganizing things was taking way too long. I still had more mouse resources to gather even after those multiple raids. Really need a lot. I still needed more mantis parts, so I had to hunt them down. They are somewhat rare, but they do live on the treetops, and after running around for quite a while, I ended up just slaughtering my own because I couldn't find any wild ones. But I still needed even more for the final piece, so I was forced to find some. This one dropped an egg too, so back to the incubator to get a couple more mantis sent my way, not for the contribution points, but for their parts. Also, I needed another mantis tamed because, well, I slaughtered mine. And eventually, I got all the parts. My next objective was taming all the critters. I started organizing and taking stock of what I already had from the incubations. So far, it was the hornet, the tarantula hawk, the tarantula, the mouse, the mantis, grasshopper, cockroach, wasp, colony spider, Sawyer beetle. Also, my blue tit, scorpion, black hornet from my previous 100-day playthrough. But I plan to get those again just to show how I got them. I had to rebuild my oven since it got destroyed from the mouse. Then I got into baking. The bait that I needed to craft a trap requires some cooking, so I started that process. I still had a basic trap left over though, so I did go down and try and use it on something a little bit easier. But a storm hit and it had the ladybugs running in a different direction from me. I did find a bee I tamed earlier down here randomly though from an egg. It was just chilling, so I was able to check that one off the list. After the storm, I went back down quickly to get that ladybug, but a butterfly was more interested in the trap, so I tamed that one instead. I'm not sure why, but I randomly crafted the Telson hammer right here. I think I just realized I happened to have the resources and I figured just get it out of the way. But I'll showcase the weapons a little bit later. That did prompt me though to slowly start gathering more scorpion resources for when I eventually need that armor. I also wanted to get a scorpion egg, just for the sake of seeing how hard the scorpion raid is. And since it's the best tame in the game, I wanted to also tame it with a trap for research. Would it be easier to tame them or just get the eggs? That's the question I wanted to answer. For now, I just got parts. Tarantula parts 2 because you need their hair for the armor, and then more farming, but this time for ironwood. I was burning through fiber wood and resin as fuel way too quickly. This ironwood burns slower and provides more fuel, and I don't really use it for anything else at this point, so it was kind of my best option for fuel because wood, resin, and fiber is all something that I use frequently. I was pretty close with the scorpion armor, so I just wanted to go ahead and knock that out quickly. I just needed snake leather. It's definitely one of the tougher opponents, maybe even the toughest besides the final boss. When I fought this thing on foot, it was insanely hard, but with a scorpion, it's really not too much trouble. I went back to test out the scorpion raid. It only sent one at me, along with some gray flies. But the worst thing that could have happened did. I fell. I didn't really fall very far, but it literally just gave it enough time to destroy my incubator. But the biggest surprise was that it did it through the walls. I'm assuming this is just because the scorpion has such a large attack box that it went through, unlike the other creatures. Except I imagine the mouse did the same thing. I just killed it before it destroyed it. Anyways, it made me question the viability of actually enclosing it. It didn't seem to work as well as I thought it was. Anyway, I wasn't in need of a bunch of raids now, but I still wanted to come up with a better strategy just because I was curious. So I thought blocking off that whole branch might work. Okay, so my walls weren't high enough. I guess I'll have to keep trying. I was out of resources. Those metal walls are kind of expensive. Instead, I just used what I had left to craft my scorpion armor set. After some more metal farming, I could finally get back to crafting those traps so that I could do some more taming. I made as many as I could with the resources I had, and since it was night instead of going on a hunt, I quickly finished my wall. It was time to capture a scorpion. I went straight for the best trap, the supreme trap, and put it down. I attacked and damaged the scorpion before putting the trap down. That seemed easier, and once it went into the trap, I was actually surprised that it didn't take, but that's why I had multiple. I ran around just trying to find enough time to quickly put it down. Like I said, if it attacks you, it disrupts the process, but I was able to get it down literally just in time, and because I was already on top of me, it triggered the trap too. It knocked it out, and second time's a charm. I kept going with my traps. Finally got a ladybug in my almost 100 hours. I don't think I had tamed one of these yet, even though it was tameable in the very first base version of the game when there was only like 5 things you could tame. And it has a useful feature too. It can carry around items for you, so I'm surprised I never went after it. And after even more resource grinding, it was more taming attempts. But I was kind of focused on trying to get eggs. The traps were getting expensive, and the raids were so easy that I thought it'd just be easier to collect eggs, except luck was not on my side. Things were just not dropping eggs for me. After endless encounters with disappointing results, I was actually surprised to come across a nocturnal dragonfly egg. When I made a list of all the creatures to tame, these were not on that list because I didn't think that you could tame them. But this made it clear that you can. So not only did I have this, I also had the other nocturnal creatures to go after now. A few more things that I had to add to my list. After getting frustrated though with other eggs, I eventually just started using my traps. I think that is probably the overall faster method, unless you are getting eggs from things like gray flies or ants, which are super abundant. Using traps is probably just a faster method. I tamed a green beetle and I brought that back to my base. Then, a new attempt at my incubation strategy. I just went bigger with the protection. Now they'd have to destroy the walls first before they could actually do damage to the incubator. I temporarily fortified my base and then did a raid. It was just a gecko, so all this wasn't needed, but I was just really testing to see if they could get around my wall. Of course, they could, so it was back to adding more walls, continuing to try to improve my base defense strategies. I didn't have any larger creatures to incubate right now though, so to really test this, I had to go back to collecting some. I put my nocturnal dragonfly in the incubator. I did end up finding a regular dragonfly egg too while I was out there after many attempts, so that also went in an incubator, and then I hatched them when they were ready. I hatched an ant worker while I was waiting for those, carpenter ant worker or black ant worker, then out to hunt more creatures. I came across another lubber. This one I put down a trap for. I got his health low enough, put down my supreme trap, which is the best one, and on the first attempt, I was able to tame this guy, no issues. I had to test one thing though. Like the grasshopper, it has this awesome jump, but this is a much more sturdy hopper, and it's fun to ride. I went right back to the same area I was in, put down a trap, getting ready to damage a stag beetle. That was a supreme trap, so the best one, but still, no damage was needed for the stag beetle. Of course, immediately after, I finally get that stag beetle egg, which I had been looking for a while. At this point, though, I can pretty definitively say taming them with traps is a faster method because the eggs sometimes just don't drop. And even though building traps required a decent bit of farming here and there, like getting pyrite, it was definitely still an easier way to get a bunch of creatures versus just farming eggs. I went to find a lizard, but it was nighttime, so I got a firefly instead. But when daylight came and the lizard returned, I captured one of those as well. I continued my taming spree, alternating between farming resources, crafting traps, and then going out on the hunt. The wolf spider was next. Then a black widow. Then the mighty horned beetle, which was easier than I thought was going to be. The annoying stink bug next. And then a frog. Except you can't tame a frog. At least I couldn't. It wanted nothing to do with the trap, and the antenna didn't say anything about a baby or an egg or anything like that. So unless there's something I'm missing, which always could be the case, I took it off the list. I just don't think it's tameable. The water bug was next. And even though I literally couldn't see anything, I managed to get a nocturnal spider. So I ran into a bit of an issue while attempting to get blackberries for the bait cakes needed for traps. They were stuck in the ground. I had come here in the past for a hearty handful of berries, but now they were in the ground. I just chalked it up to being out of season, so I went to look for other spots. One of the very few bugs I've encountered in this game that aren't meant to be there. I found myself in Lysandra's den again to get one of her jumping spider eggs. And silk. I needed lots of silk for things. Then a nocturnal ladybug. And a moth. I ended up hatching an ant warrior, and I stored it safely away from the others. One thing I've been doing, if not noticed already, is putting all these creatures away from the raid spawn point. If an attack happened near them, they would all aggro and they would all die instantly. I incubated the jumping spider and hatched that one ready. I attempted to tame the spiderlings, which are the spider matriarch's little babies or guards or whatever, but they wanted nothing to do with me, a fight, or the traps. So I crossed those off the list. I don't think they're tameable. Then a damselfly. This was in the beginning the pinnacle of tames. It was the endgame tame when the game first launched and the only way you could fly. But now, just a collectible. I hatched a gray fly since I had extra eggs. I got more blackberries and tamed a bee drone nearby. And when night came, I went for the nocturnal grasshopper. Out to the swamps next, which I think is the only place to find a mosquito. My traps actually didn't work on it though, but I was able to get a couple eggs because usually there's a ton of them out here. And the raid for it wasn't bad at all, even with exposed incubators. Anyway, the mosquitoes were no challenge and I hatched one. When I checked my list, to my surprise, it was complete. All the easy things like ants that you just randomly get from eggs were done. All the more rare things I had already gotten. I was all the way completed. The only thing left on my list was the viper, and there was no way you could tame that. If I couldn't get a frog, there's no way. I would lose my mind if I could tame the viper. Maybe I should have at least tried. But since I was done, I destroyed my wall and I collected all that juicy metal and pyrite because I needed it for storage. My objectives were almost complete and I needed space to showcase my work. I started clearing my base and moving everything off to the side into storage away from the raids. Because afterwards I also wanted to test out a few more raid strategies, particularly for those mice. I cleared space and then showcased all my tames. Next was the rest of the armor. I still had some early game armors to gather, and I had to do some resource farming to get them all. But since I have already been to the person that sells them, I can already craft almost everything at my base. Most armors are unlocked just by going to the NPC or by completing their task in the main story. The few to take note of, apart from the faction armors, are the Scorpion armor, which a schematic has to be bought from Sarnak, the Icarus armor and wings, which is unlocked by finding the chest pieces and trading them to Malik, and the Tyrant crown and wings, which are unlocked after defeating the final boss, found in his lab at the very end. The only armor I had to go out to a person to get crafted, as I could not craft at my base for some reason, was the Healer's armor from Tuhala, and it's somewhat expensive. Overall though, the process took me only about an hour. Again, that's with already having a large portion of it done, and that included me being lazy and slaughtering my own tames for the parts that I didn't have. But the bulk of the effort was done in my 100 days playthrough, because just progressing through the story and unlocking them is kind of the longer process. Gathering the resources and crafting them is a lot easier and quicker to do. Now that the armor was finished, I just had to complete my weapons collection. The first thing I needed was the Stinger Lance. This secretive spear is hidden in the world and must be found to unlock the recipe. I remember from a long time ago. I believe I stumbled upon it in the past, but to be honest, I had to look up where it was. And there's two locations. One is in the sewer, so having remembered coming across it there in the past, I went down there. But the sewer was bigger than I remember, and I actually got quite lost. Nor could I find the spear, even with a guide. They have definitely added to this area since I've last been down here. I ended up stumbling across something rather exciting though. A really cool black gecko. And it was a level 99 too. This was so random and a really cool discovery. After experiencing so much already, it was such a treat to discover something new. Something I had no clue existed. Even from seeing other guides and content, this was a complete surprise to me and a really cool feeling to find it. Of course, I had to go tame it now. And if you're curious why it's not attacking me, I just turned on peaceful mode because I really wanted to get a good look at it. Before I did that though, I quickly went to the other Stinger Lance location so that I could get there while there was a little daylight left. And this is how you find it. It is next to this totem, which is right here on the map. It's just stuck right in the ground. It's on a little island, so you'll have to cross a little bit of water from any direction, but it's nothing that you can't find early game. So you get the lance when you grab it, but now you can also craft it at base. After that, I went back for the gecko. It was still an easy tame even though it's high level, but again, it was just really cool to have found it. As far as the rest of the weapons go, the only thing I had yet to unlock was that Stinger Lance. All others I had unlocked previously. For the Pyrite Greatsword, you find the schematic for it in the crypts. Then you're able to craft it at your forge. For the Etherean weapons, I unlocked those by going to the Etherean Forge. Once you interact with the forge, you get the recipe to craft the Great Axe, the hammer, and the Icarus arrows. I already had the arrows and the hammer. I still needed the axe, which you need feathers for. So I went to attack a bird's nest to get its attention and just use my scorpion to take down one of these normally really difficult opponents. And by normally, I mean without an OP scorpion. But after I got my feathers, I also grabbed the bird's egg because I was there. In order to hatch this thing, you just take it to Malik, the NPC, and he will trade it to you along with 500 hoots for an adult. 500 hoots is kind of a lot, and since I didn't tame one this time around, I figured I'd at least share that information here. So as far as getting those 500 hoots, the fastest method for me was to get a strong tame and farm the ether enemies. They drop a decent amount and they can quickly be killed with like a scorpion or even the mouse, maybe even a black hornet, which is much easier to get. But you can also buy hoots with pyrite and other means of farming. For example, you can use your contribution points, but honestly just farming them from the Etherean troops are definitely going to be your fastest method. You can get 500 hoots relatively quickly and be on your way to getting your own bird. Anyways, the last weapon that isn't just unlocked by collecting resources or buying a schematic is the Queen's Grace, which is what I've been using most of the time because it's just so dope looking, and I mean, well, it's a giant sword. But you get this thing from beating the main story as a reward from the Queen for saving her life. All of the other weapons I just had to craft, which of course required some more farming, but it was nothing crazy. In a fairly short bit of time, I had all I needed, and I completed my weapons collection. Just for reference, here is what it looks like with no armor on. Then, very early on, almost immediately, you run into your first NPC, Hearn, located right near the starting point of the world, and impossible to miss, who gives you the padded armor, an early game armor fit for cold weather with added cold protection, and the light armor, which is more suited for movement, giving you a slight movement buff. The next armor set available is from Caleb, another early game and easy to access NPC. The stone armor provides much better protection, but you'll lose out on speed because of it. It's an easy armor to obtain once you get a pickaxe for stone. The next set you get from Scotty, who has two. The primal armor, stronger yet than the stone armor, also with added cold protection. And the chitin armor, similar in strength but additional protection against edge damage. After that, we have the Spider Lady Lysandra, who gives you access to her Silkweave armor. It's even stronger than the previous ones, but with a significant buff to movement speed. This is a must-get once you defeat the albino spider to unlock it. Then, onto Drustana, the Bee Lady. This is even stronger than the spider armor, but you lose out on the movement speed. However, that's made up by the fact that it's the first set of armor to have wings. I personally recommend getting this armor as soon as possible. It's quite strong, not terribly hard to get, and wings are pretty game-changing. And it looks awesome. Next, we have Myrmec. He also has 2 armor sets. The Formic armor, a slight upgrade from the Bee armor and good for blunt attacks. The Bone armor, an even stronger upgrade to the previous, and a really solid armor against pierce damage, which is helpful in taking down the Black Hornet, which is needed to unlock the next set of armor. Nock gives you the Iron Wing armor, which requires defeating the Black Hornet and bringing the Sapphire Wing to Nock. It's similar in strength to the Bone armor, but it has good resistance against edge damage and is the second set of armor with wings. Tuhala and her healing armor is the next set to unlock. This is a very useful armor as it's the only one that can provide health regeneration. It's slightly less strong than some of the others, but also has a unique anti-poison effect, which can be very useful. When you make your way down into the crypts, you'll find the Historian and his Pyrite armor set. It's similar in strength to the Iron Wing armor, but with slightly better cold protection. The Icarus armor, unlocked from Malik. This is the strongest armor yet, and comes with the 3rd set of wings. But these wings are different, as they enable you to thrust upwards. This might be the most game-changing and necessary armor piece in the game. It's mid to late game, but should be sought after as soon as you can cross the bridge into the second area. The armor set requires all the black chest pieces, and the wing set require all the white chest pieces to be found and then traded to Malik. Then onto the Scorpion armor, found from Sarnak, who you will run into as part of the main story quest, but this armor requires purchasing the schematic separately with Hoots. It's costly for resources as well, but worth it as it's even stronger than the Icarus armor, and essentially the strongest full armor set in the game. That is, aside from the Tyrant's Crown, which is the strongest headpiece, but it's not a full set. This, along with the Tyrant's Wings, are unlocked after defeating the final boss and found in his lab at the end. And that brings me to the most recent armors added in, the Rodent armor, unlocked after defeating your first mouse and collecting its resources. A very strong armor set that includes the best yet cold protection in the game. And the Mantis armor set, which is unlocked also by collecting Mantis parts. This is a early to mid game armor with lesser protection, but it sure looks pretty cool. And finally, we have the 4 faction armor sets. Each of these costs about 200 contribution points to unlock the full set, and then another 90 contribution points for the 2 sets that have wings. The armor sets are similar in strength to the non-faction equivalent. We have Drustana's faction B armor, Scotty's faction primal armor, Lysandra's spider faction armor, and Myrmec's faction Formic armor. Some of these weapons have lower tier versions like wooden swords and stone hammers. For those though, I'll just showcase the highest tier. But let's start things off with the Iron Sword. your standard weapon for edge damage, unlocked from building a forge. The iron hammer, the standard weapon for blunt damage, also unlocked with the forge. Next up we have the iron axe, another option for edge damage but less stamina cost than the sword, also unlocked from the forge. The scythe, a very fast edge damage weapon, also unlocked with the forge. The blowgun. You can fire a variety of standard and specialized darts like poison. It's an early game weapon unlocked when finding bones or bark and have a stone cutter. The composite bow. The strongest bow available and unlocked when you find a lizard claw and have a stone cutter. The bone mace. An early game weapon for blunt damage, crafted once you obtain bones. The poisoned mace. A stronger version of the bone mace with added poison damage and piercing damage, unlocked once you obtain a poison gland. The lubber mace, an improved tool for blunt damage, unlocked when you collect a lubber femur and build a forge. Morning Star, the peak version of the mace with the most blunt and piercing damage of the others, but missing the poison effect. It requires a lizard claw and a forge. Grasshopper scythe, a very early game weapon that does minimal damage, but is easy to obtain early on by getting a grasshopper leg. Rodent Spear, the most recent addition, a very powerful piercing damage weapon, obtained after acquiring mouse hide and crafted at a forge. The Mantis Saber, another mid to early game weapon used for edge damage, requires serrated chitin from the Mantis to unlock. Viper Saber, another specialty saber. This one is one of the strongest available and only obtained from defeating the mighty Viper and collecting its fang. The Hand Cannon, also known as a gun. This is an absolute monster and almost necessary to take certain endgame things down, but it has a very slow reload time. It still requires some strategy. It's found from the NPC Granger, who you encounter on the main story. Stinger Lance. This is a mid-game piercing damage weapon with added poison effect. It is a unique item found in the world in 2 separate locations. Once you acquire it, you can then craft it on your own. Pyrite Greatsword, a late game sword for edge damage. You must acquire the schematic found in the crypts at the old workbench in order to be able to craft it at your forge. The Aetheran Great Axe and Great Sword, an even stronger version of the standard forge, axe, and sword. These Aetheran weapons are only unlocked once you interact with the Aetheran Forge, located near one of their bases. Then it becomes craftable at your forge. The Icarus Arrow is also unlocked here at the Aetheran Forge. Telsin Hammer, another late game weapon that does massive blunt damage. The Scorpion Hammer is unlocked by purchasing the schematic from Sarnak for a small bit of hoots. Queen's Grace, a mighty sword with great damage and even better looks. This gem is only unlocked by finishing the main story. Save the queen and you get it as a reward. Mandibular Great Axe, the faction weapon for Myrmec's faction. It costs 90 contribution points to unlock. Spider Faction Scythe, the Spider Faction's weapon of choice, and it also costs 90 contribution points to unlock. First up we have the Mantis, a newer creature, would be good for early game traversal across the treetops. Overall fairly weak, but it's also easily tamed. Mouse, an endgame beast, tanky, strong, a must-have for defeating tougher enemies. It's only tamed by collecting a mouse fetus and incubating it. Ladybug, one of the original tames, very squishy, not meant for fights, but can carry stuff with an additional inventory. The only creature who can still do this, so it still can be useful. Nocturnal Ladybug, the nocturnal variant, more aggressive in nature, but seemingly not much different when it's your tame. Carpenter Ant Worker. It's an ant, what more to say, not much of a fighter. And even though this one is called the Warrior Ant, it's still not going to help you much in battle. Bull Ant, a slightly stronger ant. Maybe an army of these might be fun to use, but it's still too squishy to take as a serious combat tame. Grasshopper, another one of the original 5 things that you could tame. It was and still is potentially the best first tame you can get. It has incredible movement abilities with a massive jump that can cover the whole map in just a few hops. Nocturnal Grasshopper. The nocturnal variant is pretty much just cooler looking, doesn't really provide many other benefits. Lubber, essentially an upgraded grasshopper. Stronger, bigger, but the jump is the same. It is a good tame to get before you are able to take flight. Sawyer Beetle, a challenging early game enemy that could provide some strength early game as a tame, but overall pretty weak and slow. Green Beetle, a more tanky beetle that is rideable. It's very slow, but it can provide that extra tanky protection. Stag Beetle, an even more tanky beetle, another formidable foe out in the wild. It can provide further protection to the rider, but not the best combat mount because of its extremely slow speed. Cockroach, a nice big bulky bodyguard to have. You cannot ride it, but its size can help protect you in combat. It's also pretty strong. Stinkbug, one of the more annoying creatures out in the wild. The Stinkbug has a poisoning ability that can certainly help damage and slow enemies out in combat. Horned Beetle, the pinnacle beetle. This thing is one of the harder creatures to take down. It does massive damage and is very strong. A great partner to have in battle when not looking for something to ride. Waterbug, an annoying little water bug that's pretty weak and probably won't provide much value. Gecko, another one of the original tames. The Gecko is probably your first combat mount originally, but now some of the other early game tames are probably superior now. Lizard, basically just a stronger version of the Gecko. It's also rideable. Firefly, useful for its resources, but other than that, you're not bringing this thing into a fight. Butterfly, same goes with the butterfly. Stare at its beauty all you want, just don't bring it into a fight. Also, they are unexpectedly slow. Moth, the thick butterfly. Same thing with these. Pretty cool looking, a lot less gross than a real moth, but not a combat mount or a rideable mount. It doesn't give you much value. Damselfly, the best tame in the game, is what this was at launch. It was the only flyer at first and basically the endgame tame. Now it's pretty useless. The flight is very limited and overall it's very squishy. There are much better flyers at this point. Dragonfly. The Dragonfly, however, is not one of those much better flyers because you cannot fly on it. Not all that stronger either anyway, so it wouldn't be very wise to bring into battle. Nocturnal Dragonfly. The nighttime variant is neat looking, but all the same things apply as the regular one. Greyfly, one of the more annoying creatures, especially when you first go farm metal. A swarm of these can quickly run you mad, unless you have a swarm yourself, though probably not a great tame for battle. Mosquito. Same goes for the mosquito. A swarm might work for you, but individually they are quite weak. Bee. Your standard bee. Useful for parts, but you cannot ride this guy, and he's not very strong. Bee drone. A weaker, smaller version of the bee. If you aren't using the regular bee, you are likely not going to be using this guy either. Wasp. Now we bulk things up with the wasp, a much sturdier and stronger tame. It cannot be ridden, but it still might have its uses in battle. Hornet. An even better version is the Hornet, which is rideable and has a solid health, attack, and mobility. It would definitely be worthwhile to tame one of these as early as you can. This will likely be your first flyer if bypassing the damselfly. Black Hornet. The Black Hornet is the same, but usually much higher levels and stronger because you find them in the second part of the world. It's only unlocked after progressing the story, so once you make your way across the bridge, you'll definitely want to look at making an upgrade to your Hornet with one of these. Tarantula Hawk. The mightiest of the bees, or at least the bee-likes. Yes, I know there's technically a difference. A truly formidable foe. Taking on a group of these, even with the strongest tames, is the challenge. It will aid you in battle, surely, but unfortunately, it cannot be ridden. Colony Spider. Another extremely annoying creature to deal with in the wild. With their swarms, quick speed, and poison ability, they are not fun to take on foot. But as your tame, without a larger number of them, they may not be the best combat tame. Jumping Spider. An adorably cute spider, which was rideable at one point, but with bugs, they've changed that. Besides being super cute, it's pretty squishy, so if you can't ride it, you probably won't be using it much. Nocturnal Spider. The nighttime spider. It has similar properties to the wolf spider. Tarantula. The mightiest of the spider-like creatures. Good health, good damage. Would be a good tame to bring into battle if it weren't for the other creatures that you get in the same area. The scorpion. Black Widow. The infamous Black Widow, which is similar to the other spiders in strength, but it's still pretty cool that you can tame a Black Widow. Wolf Spider. Another one of the original tames. This was once a really helpful combat, rideable tame, but many of the other things have become superior. The Blue Tit. The mighty bird. It is a must tame, giving you free flight and ease of access across the whole map. It requires finding an egg and trading it to Malik, along with 500 hoots, and while you technically don't need it to complete the story, it's definitely a must-have. Scorpion. Another must-have. This is the strongest tame in the game, both in terms of tankiness and attack power, and it's not even close. It can 1v1 anything else in the game, even at its base level. It is a late game tame, but it's fairly easy to get with the Supreme Trap. You'll want this guy by your side as soon as you possibly can. Alright, so to find the black gecko, it's located in the top left corner of the map. In the sewers, there's a couple different access points. I like this, or I find this one to be the easiest. So in between these two waterfalls up here on this little island, all the way up in the top left of the map, you'll see this entrance to the sewer. You'll just want to go in that entrance. And then from here, it's very straightforward. You can't turn left here, so you just have to keep going straight. It'll just come around the bend. You'll go down this little angle here. And again, there's no, it looks like you can turn left, but you can't. It's blocked off. So you just keep moving forward. It's a little mazy, but for the most part, it's very straightforward. Once you go up that hill, you'll come into your first actual intersection where you can actually go two different directions. And you'll just want to make sure to take a left. And then you'll come into another, not really intersection, because you can only go one way. So you just kind of curve off to the left here and then just keep following the tunnel. Again, it's very straightforward. It looks like you can go multiple directions in most cases, but you can't. Again, here you'll have to just take another left and then another blockage, and you'll just have to go right here. So mostly straightforward. Just follow the path. There's just those couple intersections. You'll start to see roots and grass, and that's how you know you're getting close. And then you just keep following the straightforward path all the way through. There's a couple enemies down here, but nothing too difficult. And eventually you'll start to see more ground. And then it'll kind of take you down a little bit into this little cave, I guess, if you will, and you'll find the black gecko in there. Starting things out with the first one very small step, meet the Elder. This is the first NPC you'll come across. He kicks off the initial questline. It's located right near the starting area, and you really can't miss it. Stone Age, collect stone. Stone is a commonly used resource, and you will guarantee farm it along a regular playthrough. You just need to get a pickaxe first. Getting some shut-eye. Sleep in a bed. A bed can be crafted immediately. It just needs a roof. Beds are useful for passing the night, so another achievement unlocked just from a normal playthrough. It does need to be nighttime, however, to use it. Insect Hunter, collect chitin. Another commonly used resource collected from sturdier bugs. You'll gather this on a normal playthrough, typically from a beetle. Forming bonds, tame any creature. I tamed a creature previously with the old method of simply lowering their health and giving a treat, and I've used the new method as well with a trap. Both would have gotten this achievement, but another easy one you will definitely get on a normal playthrough. Vertebrae Hunter, collect bones. Bones are a mid-game resource, but will be used in many recipes. You're collecting them early on, usually from geckos. It's another resource you will likely not miss out on a standard playthrough. Smooth as silk, collect silk. The same goes for silk. Used in many recipes, so you'll most likely get it naturally on a normal playthrough, but it does require a flint shears and the courage to face off against some spiders. It's found all over the swamps in these spider cocoons. Something wicked. Find the witch, Tuhala, an NPC who is located in a swamp area. She can be found here on the map. There is no directions given to her location, only a hint as to where she might be, so you have to find her on your own. She provides a unique healing armor to craft. Hang time. Glide for the first time. The first wings come from Justana. I sought these out as early as possible in my playthrough. These are fairly cheap once you progress to mid-game and are very, very helpful. Metal Age. Collect a metal piece. A mid-game resource, it's commonly found and commonly used. You won't make it to the end likely without using metal, so another easy achievement you'll get just from a normal playthrough. It's found all over in concentrated areas. Mastermind. Meet with Knock. Knock is an NPC who helps you progress the story, and it's how you unlock one of the coolest armor sets, so you'll definitely come across her in your standard playthrough. Located right here on the map, this is also where you'll find your first high concentration of metal. Safe, claim a tree. Claiming a tree can be done from the start. This world has a number of trees that allow you a safe home off the ground. You can move from tree to tree and all your buildings will move with you. All you do to claim one is talk to the balloon guy or owl statue at the base of it. The key. Find the key for the walnut chest. This is a part of the main quest and will be naturally completed if completing the story. The key is located around the neck of the King Stag Beetle, one of the world bosses. Mothman, meet the Historian. This is the NPC you go to after you unlock the walnut chest, another part of the main story, and is achieved through normal progression. A little hard to find though, he's located underneath the church in the bottom corner of the map. Fool's Gold. Collect Pyrite. An endgame resource. You will likely gather this if progressing through the main story. It can first be encountered near the Historian down in his crypts, but requires a higher tier pickaxe to farm. Trading time. Meet the Merchant. There are multiple merchants, but you are required to meet with one as part of the main story, so another natural achievement you get just from a standard playthrough. Ornithomancer, meet with Malik, another story NPC located here. He is also useful for acquiring a bird. Knock knock, who's there? Meet with Granger, another story NPC located here on the map. He is also useful for acquiring the hand cannon, the most powerful weapon, and you will likely need it to take down the final boss. Monster extraction, collect a snake fang. The Viper is one of the toughest creatures to face down. With proper weaponry and a tanky tame, it shouldn't be a problem though. I took one down using both to collect my snake fang, a resource used in a few late game weapons and armor. Scorpion's Shadow, meet with Sarnak. Another story NPC. She requires a tribute of scorpion parts to meet with her, but will be encountered in a standard playthrough of the main story. She also provides the recipe for the highest tier taming bait, and one of the best sets of armor. Explosive development. Collect fire sand. Fire sand is a resource needed for your hand cannon ammo, crafted with refined sulfur and refined saltpeter, both found in the Amber Valley. You will likely need this if defeating the final boss, so it's common to get this achievement in a standard playthrough. Dragon Slayer, collect a feather. The blue tit drops these feathers. I defeated multiple with my scorpion. It is also a resource used in higher level weapons and armor. Take flight, collect Icarus wings. Pretty much the only achievement that you really need to go out of your way for. The Icarus wings are the first wings to allow upward thrust, and should be sought after as soon as you possibly can because they are pretty game changing. It requires you to collect the chess pieces located in this part of the map. Here is a quick guide. This first one is located just under this playground at this ether camp. It's just under this leaf structure, which as you can see is not there. I have it in my inventory because I already picked it up. The White King shown on the map here. Next one is in this pond right nearby. It is right under this tire in this little water area. The White Pawn shown on the map here. Next, we move up just a little bit further in this next little pond up the way a little bit. You have the White Knight right next to this little tugboat thing shown on the map here. And then you have the next one, which is located under this swing set. There is this little branch or log sticking out of the ground, and it's just hidden right underneath there. You have the White Rook shown on the map here. Followed by that, you have this little toy water gun you'll find, the White Queen, just laying right next to it, shown on the map here. And the White Bishop right next to this merry-go-round, right next to this little ether hut. The White Bishop shown on the map right here. And here's an overview of all the white pieces. For the black pieces, first up we have it right next to this car. It's next to another ether camp hidden around in the corner, shown on the map here. Then under the seesaw, tucked away under this tire, half sticking out of the ground, you have the Black Queen, shown on the map here. Just up the way a little bit, we have the next one located in this ether camp in their little base, the Black Rook. And then underneath the slide, right next to this toy car, you have the next one, the Black Bishop, shown on the map here. And in between these two chess tables on the ground here, you have the Black Knight, shown on the map here. And then we have another one stashed away in an ether camp just under this little leaf structure. You have the Black Pawn. And here are all the black pieces shown in full.